I hear the sounds of your heartbeat. I can hear it now. I can hear it now. I hear the sounds of your heartbeat. I can hear it now. I can hear it now. I hear the sounds of your heartbeat. I can hear it now. I can hear it now.
All right. So what I had planned for this evening is technically not working out too well. So instead, what I decided to do is just take a couple of the guests and just hop onto a live stream and just have the open conversation. So I'd like to welcome aboard Always Questioning from my Twitter feeds and Eric from my Substack feeds, Substack/Twitter, I'm guessing. And yeah, we're just going to hop into a conversation. So what I'm going to do is, ladies first, I'm going to go Always Questioning. Why don't you give a quick introduction to yourself? And then after that, we'll get Eric to do the same. And then, yeah, we'll start talking about shit that's going down in Canada this week.
Cool. I'm always questioning. I ask too many questions. It gets me in trouble sometimes. And that's what keeps life spicy and exciting. And it's a really interesting time lately on all levels of government, municipal, provincial, federal. It's like all coming to a head at once. So I'm stoked that we're here because I'm really curious to pick other people's brains and see what you think.
Perfect. And you're here in Calgary, right?
I am.
So Calgary and in the province of Alberta, obviously. So, I mean, there's a few extra things that we've got going on that, others aren't seeing across the country. One was the flooding or the burst pipes for Calgary and us on a water shortage. So that's kind of an interesting. We'll talk a little bit about that, even though that's not really going to be Eric's main topic of concern. But Eric, give a quick introduction. Give the elevator speech, man.
Here we go. Yeah, oil patch guy. Been that way for about 30 years now. Transplanted out of Calgary, but I've lived all over the country. So I've got to see a whole lot of different perspectives. Different ideas from many different kinds of people. Even lived in Ottawa, which was an experience, especially middle of winter. It's never a fun place. You think it gets cold in Calgary, don't ever go to Ottawa. But anyway, yeah, I got really lucky actually when the pandemic hit, that it didn't affect me near as much as it did a whole bunch of other people, but still lost, really good friends, or what I thought was really good friends. People that got just absolutely hoodwinked. And the more that I saw, the more I hit back. And I was able to find you, Sheldon. I believe it was through LinkedIn originally, because you and Nadine Wellwood were, I think, LinkedIn contacts, weren't you?
That's right. So
Yeah.
Nadine, she's
She was PPC, running for PPC
candidate. Yeah,
Cochrane. Yeah. She is no longer doing that. She is the last time actually that I knew what she was doing politically. Anyway, she was trying to run for the UPC or UCP, sorry, out of one of the ridings in Calgary, and was shut out of it. She wasn't allowed to run. I don't know if that's due to her PPC affiliations or what it was, but
I think she was recently doing some traveling with the Alberta Prosperity Project.
Yeah.
And I believe her and Corey Morgan were on part of the same circuit, and then she continued a little further north, and he just came back home, if memory serves. And that was within the last few months, I believe. But yeah. No, that's, and it's funny how many people I've carried from LinkedIn, because, I still have a small core group of people of the 5,500 connections that I'd made before being banned from the platform. I'm appreciative of the conversations that we get to have, and it's always nice to see people. So, no, that's great, and thanks for taking some time on a Friday to come out and have a conversation with us, Eric. This is great.
Well, I don't often get a chance to sit around and do not too much. So
yeah, no,
we get to hang out and good to make some contact with you, because we don't get too much of a chance to chat, do we? I'll live a few text conversations, and that's about it.
Yeah, and it's it's also nice that we can do these sort of things, live stream versus always having to be together. Now I'm going to be in your neck of the woods on next Saturday.
You're coming to that, are you?
Yeah, for the veteran. Are you going to that, Eric?
I don't know yet. I'm hoping to. I don't know if I can commit the full day to it, but it's going to depend on the wife. But I'm hoping to catch a good portion of it anyway.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, it's like an 11-hour event. I mean, that thing's a stretch, but
wow.
That's the tough part.
So I'm trying to get a couple of the speakers from the event next week to promo the show onto a live stream next week, and I've already got Kelly booked.
Nice.
And there's another one of the speakers I'm going to try and get for Tuesday. So still trying to line it up, that kind of thing. But no, it's a good time. I mean, it's Canadians for Truth. So I mean, we've got Joseph and Theo going to be out there, and then Drew from Veterans for Freedom. And we're right around the memorial for D-Day. My grandfather was on the beaches of Normandy, so it's kind of this is kind of a big thing. It's one of the times. And, he never talked about his service days. But I remember, as I got older, and we just happened to be over at my grandparents' place around this time. And, I think he was 80, I'm going to say like 82, 83 years old. And he was dressed up in his old military uniform. And, he basically just sat back with a couple of whiskeys after he'd went to some services and just cried. And he never took any time to discuss his military service background. And what was interesting is he's one of the people that joined the military at an age when he wasn't age appropriate. Wow. He volunteered. He was from Prince Edward Island, and he basically got a fake ID that got him onto the beaches of Normandy. One of the most notable times when Canadian military was active in the history of the Canadian military. Wow! So it's kind of a big time, and it's really one of the reasons that I'm very supportive of the veterans groups. It's just specifically, for my grandfather. My son was also, he's also served in the Canadian Forces. It's another reason, but even before he joined, myself and my wife, we'd kind of competed back and forth with our offices to see who could raise the most amount of donations towards the food banks. Nice. And it's still, and if you're a part of my community, you know that I've actually just written a book, and I sold Swag last year, so I'm still doing things to support these. And when the opportunity came for me to meet up with the Veterans of Truth and head out to the event, it was like, I'm not passing this up. I've got to be a part of the action. So I'm really, really looking forward to meeting some of these people and having some great discussions and just seeing who all shows up. It should be a really good time. I think it's, like I said, it's going to be an 11-hour event. It's the full day thing. I'm not sure how much I'm going to be there for myself, but I've got a couple of friends that are going to be going out there. I know Vitamin D's is going to be out there. Tamara Litch was supposed to be out, but recently she just has too much on the go with the Kelowna event, so she's not going to make it out. But I think I've still got Drew Weatherhead that's coming out, and I think there's going to be a lot of people that are in the same connected circles that we're going to be going out and meeting. So it's going to be exciting. Yeah,
the Kelly Lorenz, he was the PPC nominee for South Red Deer, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, he's well spoken.
And I talked to Kelly earlier today because I hadn't met him. But I talked to Heather from Canadians for Truth, and I said, listen, if there's anybody you want me to help live stream and help promote, just to get some more exposure, so people have an idea of who they're going to see and what they're going to be listening to. I'm happy to do that. And Kelly was on a stream just today. I think it was posted. I think they did it last night, but I think they posted it on Twitter today with Joseph Borgo and Theo Fleury. So I'd seen that one pop up in my stream too. So really interesting. Should be a good time.
Cool.
All right. So going into the topics du jour, and we'll all just kind of tie in to the conversation. The big thing on Canadians' minds, I'm going to say right now, of course, cost of living, affordability, all the rest of that. But the big thing this week is treason.
Treason.
I was really hoping that your stream the other night was going to go, a lot deeper into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's still so much coming out without anything actually being released, right?
Yeah.
And that's the problem with what we're seeing is that I mean, the Liberals obviously know who these spies or whoever is
Compromised.
They obviously know who they are. They know that there's accusations out there. They know that there's going to be an investigation into this. The proper thing to do would be for them to step down instead of taking the party down with them. Because I think what we're going to see in polling results on 338canada.com is that the liberals are going to take a big beat down just based on the fact that they're not standing up. They're not giving Canadians the information that we want. And this investigation should have started long before right now. It did start a year ago in March of 2023 when the story first broke. They fucked around for an entire year and a half, a year and 3 months, to give us no resolution. And now we're finding out more information. So the Liberals are still sitting on thousands of pages of documents regarding this. They're not letting any of it out. The biggest scumbags on the planet.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think that it's just Liberals. I have a feeling that there's probably at least a few from every party. I'm just hoping that Poilievre is going to find out who in his party is involved, and he's going to either tell them to get out or kick them out or whatever, and get ahead of what's going to end up coming. I just hope whatever is coming happens before the election. I really do.
Well, they're hinging a lot. They're hinging a lot of the being mum on these conversations around it being under investigation.
Yeah,
which is complete bullshit because we'd seen the convoy, the people that donated to the convoy, whatever hacker just released that on social or not on social media through legacy media, and their people had their names in print across the country, and there was literally nothing that they'd done wrong.
Right.
So, I mean, if we can see that kind of thing leaking, and because this is a public forum, we should get to know. And there was a, what was he? He was an MLA, I think, under Rachel Notley that got caught hacking into the Alberta Health Services records and exposed.
Yeah.
And he was named long before he'd had to deal with any of that. He got a slap on a wrist. Like a literal slap on the wrist for hacking millions of private health accounts, which was bullshit too. But at the same time, the information was relayed rather rapidly. So them sitting on this information is going to continue to just downstream the party. It's going to continue to hammer them.
It's got to.
I'm just looking it up. It looks like he got fined $1,500 for each day he spent trying to hack the province's vaccine portal.
Wow.
That's wild.
Yeah, but he got in, and Notley knew that he was doing this. I mean, there's enough information that that was provided that Notley knew that this was going on. and did absolutely nothing about it. So she's complicit in the crime as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
The fact that he got a slap on the wrist. And I mean, having gone through a recent hack myself, and even up to today, I've had people still trying to log into my Facebook accounts because I have everything on two-factor authentication. So when I get an alert that the 2FA has been triggered, I know somebody's still trying to get into my accounts.
Jesus.
And when I talked to Calgary Police Services about that, they said, "Yeah, we'll take the information. We'll create a case in case you need to go to your banks, but there's really nothing we can do." A lot of what happens on the hacking side of things comes from other countries that really don't do a lot with these if they're not complicit in the crimes themselves.
Yeah.
But here we have a member of Legislative Assembly working with the former premier of, well, I guess at that time she was the former premier of the province, and all he gets is a slap on the wrist. And I mean, it's complete bullshit. As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, politics is definitely a different game, isn't it?
It is, and
It
it's
depends on what
amazing.
side you're on as to what your fine or what happens to you.
Well, and we can look at it. I mean, one of my most recent conversations on stream was with Marco van Hugenbos, and seeing what he's going through. And I mean, he was a part of the Coots thing, and he was deemed the organizer. He was relaying information back and forth. There was no official organizers to that, but he kind of stood out as remarkable. He did have some organizational skills that were involved in that. He's facing up to 10 years in prison, and we see some clown that's a literal politician. And Marco had already surrendered his seat on city council by the time the court proceedings were going on.
Yeah.
So he's no longer affiliated, but this got found out, and then the guy stepped down, and then he gets a $1,500 slap on the wrist, which I'm sure Notley was reached under her mattress, grabbed 15 brownies, handed it over, shook his hand, and said, "Sorry, son, there's nothing else that we can do with you," right?
Yeah.
No, it's completely stupid.
Yeah, she probably said, "Don't get caught next time."
Yeah.
Well, and that's it, right? What else have we seen in the news that's been troubling this week? The additional funds from McKinsey, $200 million on that stuff.
Yeah.
And the green sham, where there was hundreds of millions of dollars where these people were entrusted to support their green narrative.
And something like 186 conflicts of interest with the green slush fund,
which is pretty big. It's for only spending a couple $100 million, 186 conflicts, and 90 of them were around like one main thing, right? Like it was completely stupid. For what we've seen, like literally no money actually got out into the public as was intended. There's no tracking being done on the green sham. And it's literally just a way to grease palms for these losers, opening up into a loser industry that's failing them so that they can get a taxpayer handout. It's an ass grab, if anything. And we get nothing. There's zero benefits to any Canadians from shucking out hundreds of millions of dollars to these fucking criminals.
Don't get me started. I just think about, I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg, man. The money that ends up going here, there, and everywhere that, comes out of our tax dollars that there is just absolutely no accountability for. Like that is the tip of the iceberg. There's so much shit that goes on that we don't even know about. I think back to, and this was a while ago now, but I mean, you think about Trevor Noah. That was whatever the hell his show was called.
Yeah.
The live show, I think it was something like that. Anyway,
Yeah,
When he
I know who
he
you're
was-
talking about. He's the
Yeah.
black guy, right?
Yeah. So yeah, the black guy. So, but yeah, he was doing some. He was
He's the
doing
black
some
guy,
function.
but not Sam L. Jackson.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, Samuel was way funnier. But no, he was doing some function for, I think it was South African women, reading something about a reading thing for South African women and girls. And Trudeau, well, in a tweet said, "Hey, Trevor, how about 50 million from Canada for your cause?" I'm thinking, where the fuck did I vote for that? I'm pretty sure I didn't, and I don't think I saw it in a line item on my tax form. But
Do you
again,
remember when Trudeau gave money to Ukraine for gender inclusive demining efforts?
yeah,
Like, at least that one was funny.
yeah, true enough.
Well, how much
That's the
did he give
sad part. It's all funny, you know.
to Hillary Clinton for her shit too, right?
Well, yeah, but it's
Which
just
was-
there's so much, you know. Fuck, they're trying to find ways to come to take more of our money. And Freeland said it during the pandemic again, of course, that everybody's just sitting at home, so there's a lot of money just sitting around, and all we have to do is just find a way to just get a little bit of that money. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Stay the hell out of my pocket. But now, and they need this money because they're throwing it into Ukraine. They're throwing it into South Africa. They're throwing it everywhere. And I guarantee you that I don't know if I'd say 10%, but there's definitely a percentage that comes back to Trudeau's foundation for every dollar that goes overseas. I mean, that's a guarantee.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. They're
And that's
draining
just-
Canada of its wealth.
This is just such a end over end slap to our face that it just drives me nuts and makes me want to drink.
Well,
Or head down
Zelensky's-
east and do things.
Go a little wild.
Do things. Yeah.
Zelensky just purchased a $200 million casino and luxury hotel in Cyprus.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, when the Ukraine war is all over, that's where all the elites are going to be hanging out. And, at current, there's no reservations even being booked at this place because of the change of ownership, but also because all they're going to be doing is just housing and farming the all the criminals that are involved in this sham to begin with.
Well, I'm sure that Zelensky's probably paying for it from all the residuals from his acting career, no?
Oh, yeah, that's probably how it's going to go.
That's right.
What we're going to find out is that Zelensky's casino and luxury suites is going to be the next Epstein Island. They'll be whoring out children from around the planet on that one, right?
Mhm. There was a thing I just noticed about 5 minutes before we got on this thing from the Epic Times that the House just passed the pandemic preparedness bill. You heard about that?
I saw something about that.
Bill
No, what is it?
293.
What does
Bill
that
C.
involve?
It says it passed its third reading. I guess so. It was 2 days ago now. 164 votes in favor and 144 against. Liberals, NDP, and Greens voted in favor. The Conservatives and Bloc voted against it. Oddly, and it was introduced by Liberal MP Nathan Erskine-Smith. Calls for Parliament to learn from the mistakes of previous pandemics and use a multi-sectoral and multidisciplinary collaborative approach to pandemic planning. And there was a portion of this bill, I guess, that it only passed barely because there was a section that the NDP wanted taken out. And as if that section was taken out, and I didn't get a chance to read that part of it, by the way. But as long as that was taken out, then they were going to vote for it. If that section was kept in, then they were going to vote against it. So it would have gone down if not for whatever that little it's NDP Peter Julian.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder what they
So
didn't
they
like.
want to have a public this NDP guy says that they want to make sure that there's public inquiry and not an advisory committee. So that's what they want to do, is just have an advisory committee that's going to decide for us what's best for us. as opposed to
Well,
having public inquiry, to which is the way it should be.
when they talk about lessons learned, it's probably going to be about don't upset the truckers. Maybe, stop interprovincial travel next time. No jerry cans. That backfired.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they mean when they talk about learning lessons.
Yes.
Well, it's in conjunction with how they're trying to stop people from saying bad things on the internet. They're looking at ways of proactively stopping hate crimes. Well, they can't stop existing crimes. But this is all a part of the Online Act. So the Online Act, originally intended to protect children, and they jam in all this other legislation that's complete horseshit. So, every one of these bills that gets passed, and I'm going to say this even with Bill 20 inside of the province here, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of good stuff inside of Bill 20. I'm not sure if you guys are that familiar with it, and it's okay if you're not. But Bill 20 is the one where Smith has, or where the UCP has basically said, we're going to make some decisions on if city council is going against the electorate. We'll shut down bills. We'll make some decisions, and if the town councils look that corrupt or whatever, we'll fire them, right. Which they already have in their wheelhouse to do. So it's not that big of a deal. It's not as big of a deal as what most people make. The parts I do like about it are, the restrictions on the amount of money that candidates can take from the unions, basically, or from, which is a big thing because we've seen what the unions actually paid for, and what we have as a part of city council right now. The hateful eight, as we call them, with Gondek. So they helped get Gondek and 7 other candidates elected, and they've been just absolute trash to the city. Mm-hmm. And we see every one of their decisions, because they have the majority of the house, so to speak. They could do whatever the fuck they want. They run roughshod over Calgarians without taking any consideration. I think it is the same thing in Edmonton, because the combined total was like $3.5 million to buy the 2 elections in Edmonton and Calgary.
You know what's interesting,
side of things.
It looks like in Calgary, admin runs the show, and admin basically owns council because of the way that they got the hateful eight elected. And then they just put something in front of council, and council says, yes, because you got us elected. But what's interesting in Edmonton is it looks like it might be the opposite, because they've been running through CAOs. They've had a bunch of their chief administration officers quitting. And so I don't know what's going on there, but it looks like the reverse of whatever is going on in Calgary.
That's surprising.
Well, 2 ways to corrupt the same systems, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
And on the Calgary side of things, excuse me, what we're looking at right now is this big busted water main, which Calgary has basically now come to the conclusion that we're going to run out of water before they can fix this fucking thing. That's not a conclusion that they should have come to.
Yeah. So is that I think I was reading something today on that that said that they had already been working on this line. So was this a patch job that went bad, or?
Well, it can't be, because they were working on it in April, but they claimed for a while that they couldn't find the source of the break. So if it was a bad patch job, you'd assume that's the first place they would look.
Yeah.
But we really don't know much yet.
Yeah, and I don't want to throw accusations out or speculations, but the city has taken on a lot of pet projects, and we spend a lot of money. Taxes continue to increase, and our services continue to decrease.
Yeah.
And, I made my case about dandelions a couple of weeks ago, in saying that, the boulevards in Calgary and some of the fields look more like canola fields than they look like actual grass.
Same here, man.
and it pisses me off because I try to keep my lawn dandelion free, but I can't do that because none of my neighbors seem to give a shit about. Well, I'm not going to say that. One of my neighbors was out with their dandelion puller a couple of weeks ago. New neighbors moving in next door, and they just took the lawnmower blades to the dandelions after they'd already seeded. They're not living in the place yet, so it's hard to hold them responsible. But the other neighbors, for previous years, didn't give much of a shit either. And I do very well at keeping my property dandelion free, but it's just not,
Yeah.
it's not easy to do when nobody
Nope.
else in the neighborhood cares. So
Yeah.
all the people that are, talking about climate and environment and protections and whatever, none of them seem to give a shit about their own lawns if they even have their own lawns. And that's the most upsetting part of it. You people want to dictate the cost of the heating inside of my home and what I pay for gas and what I pay for groceries on a carbon tax when you can't take 12 minutes out of your day to, weed and feed and water your own lawn.
The other side of that, though, and the wife is all about this. She doesn't want me. She's one of the ones that doesn't want us to mow the lawn. There's the no mow May. I'm sure you heard about that, or have you?
No.
They don't want anyone mowing their lawns until June, because and Melissa, the wife, she said it's something about the bees when they're wintering, they'll get under leaves, they'll get under dead grass, so that's where they kind of nest for the winter. That's where they hibernate, and then they come out when everything starts drying up. So if you go raking, you go mowing, you potentially are killing bees, and she absolutely loves bees. So but that's, I think, a big part of why they're saying let's just let the dandelions proliferate, because that will save the bees. Unfortunately, when people go out with their little, weed bar and they wipe it over top of all the dandelions, then the bees come and they hit that looking to pollinate or help pollination, and that ends up killing them. And of course, we've got a major problem with bees around the world, and there's definitely they're dying off in droves. So,
and I hear that situation's actually changed too. So where we were seeing a problematic situation, I'm going to say it's over the last decade. I think that's corrected over the last few years, if I'm not sadly mistaken. I believe it has, because it's dropped off the topics of conversations, and I've seen a couple of reports basically saying the bees are back. So. We're not looking at the same extremities. Yeah,
and I don't see near as many as I used to. I see more probably in the last year or so than I did for the last 5 years before that. But I wouldn't say they're back to being the population that they kind of need to be.
Yeah,
I can't say for sure.
Yeah, and again, this is all anecdotal, what we see. And I mean, a lot of people are alarmed about climate because they don't remember climate from the previous seasons. And I always bring up the same thing is that, there's 2 points that we can look at in the year to show how climate has shifted. That's all that's happened. It's shifted.
Yeah.
And that's Halloween and Valentine's Day.
Right. Yep.
So,
very good point.
As a kid growing up, sometimes we would be in a, full-on snowsuit, a skidoo suit with a mask on, going out trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
And other times we wouldn't. And my birthday's in February, so it's close to Valentine's Day. And I know for my birthday parties as a child, sometimes we would be at the park and sometimes we would be out tobogganing. It's a seasonal shift. But, when you see a weather event, it snowed in Fort McMurray today.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit, I didn't hear about that. Wow.
Yeah.
Sure,
so
that wasn't just ash from the BC fires?
Well, no, and I said the same thing, that BC's letting their fires leak into the province. They're the ones that are causing the Alberta wildfires.
Yep.
Get Smith on the phone with Evie and not only tell him that the Canucks suck, but putting out some fires that are on our borders, right? I'm not a hockey fan. I shouldn't even chime in on that shit because I really don't care about it.
To be fair, EB did take her up on their bet when he lost. He had to like wear the Oilers jersey and read some prepared statement that she wrote. So while he's corrupt and not good, he was a good sport about it. I'll give him that.
Yeah, one good thing he's done, eh?
Well,
The
no,
only
I'm not going to give him that because I mean she could have had that with anybody. She could have had that with from somebody from Calgary. The bet could have been anywhere. I don't give EB any props because he's come out on the sports thing. Their province is literally on fire. Their healthcare system is still burning to the ground. They're still sending patients into the United States for cancer treatments, and they're bragging about how things are improving while they've still got healthcare workers sidebarred because they haven't taken the jabs. No, I give them zero props. Vancouver is as close to the brink of bankruptcy and has been for the last decade as any city across Canada, with the exception of Toronto. And I don't know how they're going to survive. What's their nuts there? And all these guys are talking about is more taxes. I know the city of Calgary had proposed more taxes. They want to have their own municipal fuel tax and their own tax on tobacco and their own tax. They want to extend all the same federal and provincial taxes to incorporate municipal taxes because they're wildly spending on bullshit projects that do nothing while infrastructure is fucking crumbling. It's a good legacy. And I'll call it the Ralph Klein legacy was having a surplus in the city.
Yeah.
Was making sure that potholes were dealt with. That was a good legacy. These people want their own fucking arenas and Nenshi towers, a bunch of fucking rebar and I-beams on the side of the road that looks like trash.
I thought that I read, this is before the last Calgary budget, the way that they actually came up with the budget was to come up with a number and then come up with the projects to justify that number. Is that correct?
I don't know.
For that, which to me is just insanity. Well,
Sohi, mayor of Edmonton, he's throwing the province under the bus for them not holding up their part. Well, if the province has continuously paid out the same amount of money and the city taxes have increased and the quality of services inside of the cities has decreased, where the fuck's the money going? Mm-hmm. So they're doing something wrong. And appreciating what AQ said, that we're different in the ways that we're viewing our municipal affairs. Both of them are failing horribly. Mm-hmm. And like Calgary's pothole city, I don't know how many people have said they've had to replace struts. They've had to, get their wheels aligned. I have a vehicle that I'm trying to sell, but I'm going to be putting a windshield into it before I go to sell it. But there's still too much gravel on the road. I'm not sure that I could make it from Crowfoot to Dalhousie, which is like 5 minutes, without getting a rock chip and a new windshield to sell the car yet.
They still haven't cleared the gravel?
No, they have on some areas, but the fucking the roads are crumbling.
Yeah, the aggregate is really large, it seems like, in our paving, and it just falls apart.
And the street sweepers were out on my block last week or the week before, which they didn't need to be. Didn't need to be done. And they did it on garbage day, which means we have all of our our bins parked out in front of the house, which means they have to swerve around them anyways. Plus, when you don't tell people that you're street sweeping, and I'm on a main drag, they don't move their vehicles, which means it's a total waste of time. If there was anything that was still in the concrete that's not attached to the or that's attached to the asphalt, that might block a raindrop, they weren't going to get it anyways because there's people parked there and fucking garbage cans. Like it was just a zigzag up my street. It was the stupidest thing. And I'm thinking, You know, for all the things that we could be spending money on, you're cleaning a clean street. Meanwhile, when there was snow on the streets, we weren't doing that.
Mhm.
Jesus.
Yeah. And now we've taken money out of the snow removal budget for the potholes.
Perfect.
I heard about that. Yep.
Is that what we've done?
Yep.
Yeah, something like, I want to say 8.9 million,
Nice.
right? We spent $5 million rebranding our city to Blue Sky City. And that's not the cost of changing all the signs and everything. That's just the cost of paying people to think about it and come up with it.
That should have had the entire of city council recalled.
Yep.
That is an expense. That was embarrassing.
Yep. No, that was beyond embarrassing.
That and the big blue teardrop. What was that fucking thing called, IQ?
Spirit of Water.
Yeah, the Spirit. What did that cost us?
Where's that?
It's by the new convention center we have.
I didn't know about that either.
It's a giant drop.
It's not even a giant drop. I don't even know what it is.
Is it bigger than the big blue hula hoop?
I think it might be. You
That
can get a lot closer to
$600,000
it.
Monstrosity.
I think the blue drop might be, I want to say that I saw 2 million, but I don't know that for sure. Don't quote me on
Holy
that.
jeez. Well, I guess if it costs $600,000 to make a circle, then yeah, to actually bend the circle into a teardrop would cost an extra one.
I thought the circle was $1 million. I thought that came in at a cool $1 million. Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong then. I remembered something about 600,000, but I don't know.
And they said that it was an engineering feat to make a circle out of steel. An engineering feat.
Almost as good a one as the Chinese finger puzzle bridge.
There was a thing called Pride of Canada. I think it was called Pride of Canada, a piece of art. And basically what it was the Canadian flag without the maple leaf in the center that the country had paid some $2 million for. I think that was about 20 years ago. Do you guys remember that?
No.
No.
It was
That
literally
was two red stripes.
It was literally 2 red stripes on a canvas. So yeah, Neil chimed in 750,000 for the blue hoop.
Between those numbers.
Yeah, so we'll get this up here. Hey Neil, I'll be reaching out to you. I'm getting tickets for the event probably tomorrow or Sunday. So I'll have a conversation with you, and we'll see you next weekend, man. Thanks for hopping onto the show, though. Sorry, always got to make sure that I'm including people. Yeah, awesome. Not that makes it that much better. 750,000. So yeah, we've got. There's going to be quite a few of us from my community, and I'm not going to say it's because of me. I'm going to say that we overlap with a lot of communities. They're going to be out to the veterans event, and then the injection of truth, and then the TBA thing with James Lindsay. Are you going to the injection of truth? Either of you?
When's that? I haven't heard of it.
It's on the 17th.
Who's putting that on?
That's UCP is putting it on, and it's literally about the jabs. So it's Eric Bouchard, and I believe he's the Lougheed group.
He replaced Kenny, right?
You know what? I don't know that much about it.
I think he took over Kenny's writing.
Could be. Injection of Truth, Townhall. So let me see if I can figure this out here. Settings, presets. There we go. Yeah, and I have to talk while I'm actually doing this stuff. So yeah, this is the event. And what they've got is they've got a number of great speakers that are going to be coming out and talking about the jabs and the impacts of the jabs on the province of Alberta. And there's some big names that are coming out to this thing.
I did read about this, yeah.
So it was originally, on what was the other app?
Eventbrite.
Eventbrite,
Right.
And-
They canceled it, didn't they?
and they canceled it. So they're
Yep.
they're doing it this way.
Good.
So yeah, this
That-
is I'm looking forward to this one as well, because this is the first time in Canada that any political party has put on a conversation with experts in the field
Mm-hmm.
talking about the impact of the jabs. And Alberta should be the leader on this one, because Smith was pretty much predominant behind this.
Yep.
So, and the thing about it is the more we kind of get into this, the more people are starting to come out of the woodwork, the more they're willing to admit that they're actually injured by the jab. So when we did our event in Edmonton a few weeks ago, we'd come to learn that there was a number of other people that had been impacted by the jabs inside of the legislature that would openly admit it. There's still others that won't. Now, this is on the UCP side of things, and it's impossible to think that there is no NDP MLAs that are unimpacted, whether it be by family member or whether it be by themselves. Now, whether they draw the association or not, that's a whole other story. So, excuse me. There is going to be something that I'm going to be working on towards this that's going to be introduced, hopefully, in legislature when they let back in October. And it's going to be basically around the same information that's being promoted. But there are, from what I've heard, there are 5 or 6 other events that are going to be coming up, like the Injection of Truth. This is a big one because it's got a lot of big names that's going to be coming out to it. But there's going to be a number of other sub-events, and it's like from, I believe it's St. Albert, Lethbridge, Medicine Hat. There's going to be something, I believe, in Red Deer. So there's going to be a few more of these events cropping up, and I'm not sure who's going to be leading the charge on them, but I'm happy to see that this is finally happening. We're finally getting to, this is what's going on, and I think it's big. And I think the province can be doing more towards this. Number one, the jabs were promoted by the feds. And the feds have the VISP program, Vaccine Injury Support Program, and they're doing absolutely nothing with it. They're turning away more people, and more money has been spent administering the funds on the VISP program than has been actually given to people that have been harmed by the vaccines.
Yeah. So you mean not administering the funds?
Well,
Putting the funds into administration.
Semantics.
Yep. Which is a pretty bad thing, because I know that we still have a number of people that are injured inside of the province. I have a couple of friends that I've met through my social media feeds that have been injured by the jabs, and they weren't able to get any place with their doctors, weren't able to get any place with the VIS program, or have been outright denied, have appealed cases, got absolutely nothing doing that, and just eventually gave up. And we've seen inside of Canada now that there have been 2 people, I believe it's at minimum 2 people, whose vaccine injuries had gotten so bad that they'd opted for MAID rather than to continue to try and live out their life without a support system in place.
Wow.
Which is tragic. It's terrible.
Agreed.
And I think we're long past the point of mocking people for getting the vaccines. Anybody that's getting them now should be rightfully mocked. But the people that, just wanted to do the right thing, that did the right thing for the right reasons. People are busy, taking care of their lives, their kids, their families, tending to their jobs, trying to have some sort of life of normalcy for what was going on through the COVID period. And the jabs were the things that got them the closest to that. When your kids are prohibited from attending camps and from extracurricular activities and from even being allowed into affordable tutoring services, then you have to make some decisions for what you believe is right. And making sure that your child has the best advantages for them, or that they're not being held back by your decisions, is one of those things. So the government really played into that. And it's terrible that they did that because of the amount of people that are actually injured right now and because of the amount of people that are not getting any support right now. So this is why I believe that the UCP event, and again, it is a UCP event, and it is the Lougheed group. That's why I believe it's so big, and that's why it's so important. So, like, I even talked to the MLA Eric Bouchard today, and just to see if he was going to be coming out to Red Deer next weekend. So the Red Deer event's on the 15th. Their event is on the 17th. He's just too busy. He's not going to be able to make it out. But he'd love to be there. And that's the whole thing. I mean, it's, the two things kind of collided at the same time. They were booked around the same time. Nobody had any of these discussions. And I know there's a lot of people. I think Neil, who's in the comments right now. Neil, you're going out to the Injection of Truth too, aren't you? He's coming out as a guest with me to the Red Deer event. Him and his wife, and they're fantastic people. I've met him at a couple of other events, and they're just fantastic supporters. And we're inside of the they call us the Freedom Group now. We have our own title. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that. We're the Freedom People still.
Perfect. And should be.
And that's whether you. Well, no, and it's whether you've been a part of the Freedom Convoy or not, or any of the protests, you're still considered part of the Freedom. So he's coming out, and he's got the meet and greet ticks as well. So he's coming out to the popcorn and politics things afterwards, which is amazing. Great stuff, Neil. We'll see you at that one too, brother. So where was I going with this? So anyways, what we're looking at right now is that the UCP party inside of the province is split. So there's a lot of what we'd call the establishment or the Kenny conservatives, and then there's the Freedom people, which are the Smith conservatives. And there's a battle in the rankings right now. And there's a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes that I think if people were a lot more privy to, they wouldn't be as fond of. Because we all want to believe that we're standing behind Smith and supporting her decisions. But in a lot of the decisions that I think are coming out in regards or in support of the UCP aren't being made by Smith at all. They're being meant to, I'm not going to say take away her power, but they're not adding to the advantage. They're looking for a way to get rid of Smith to install another Kenny-esque type person.
Jesus.
Mm-hmm. You think that's what this Alison Redford thing is about?
I don't know what the Alison. I wanted to talk to a few people before I actually comment on the Alison Redford thing.
I haven't heard of it.
Well, she was just given a position by the UCP by Smith.
What?
On board of directors for investments, I think.
God. Wow. She must have made a deal with somebody to have that thrown in.
Anybody that looks at that decision, Rona Ambrose, back in the province and back in a taxpayer-funded seat, anybody that looks at that is not going to be fond of that decision. So whoever's calling the shots behind that one.
If we steelman it, is there any good reason? I'm not that familiar with Redford's reign. I wasn't that interested in politics at the time. But was she good with investing? Is that what her career history is? Is there?
She's part of the Bilderberg group. I know that.
Oh, really?
I don't know how far up she is in the Bilderbergs, but yeah, she's been a part of that for a long time. And I don't remember one good thing that she did in her reign. I honestly don't. She was the one that actually, they were going back to drinking again, but she took the, 0.08 down to 0.05 and just arbitrarily said, yeah, that's the way it is. I mean, there was no dialogue. There was no votes. There was no discussion. There was no nothing. It was like, yeah, sorry about your luck, but it's 0.05. And if you're caught over that, then you lose your vehicle for a month and on and on and on. But she just had, to me, she was just tyrannical. I actually remember there was a debate and somebody whoever she was debating against made a comment about her, and I couldn't believe how her face twisted. She was just, I thought it was going to implode at one point. She just does not come across like a good person at all to me.
She had quite a short reign, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very
Too
short,
long.
and
Yeah,
and
it was
and,
too
and it
long.
wasn't appreciated by any Albertan. So, but even when Smith pulled in Preston Manning to do the assessment of the pandemic responses,
Mhm.
I don't think that was a good decision either.
How come?
Well, I mean, Preston Manning's a good conservative, but it's the appearance of what Preston Manning was to present and then what he actually presented that came off looking like we don't give a fuck about what anybody else thinks. This is what we think, and this is how we're going to assess things. So his appearance on this panel or at the head of the investigation, and then what he actually presented, which was the largest nothing burger inside of the history of nothing burgers in the province when it came down to the pandemic responses, was literally just giving him a paycheck too. And did you guys ever have a look at the Preston Manning report on the pandemic response?
I did, but it was so long ago.
Yeah. I kind of looked at the overview of it. I didn't go through it point by point. I thought that was a Kenny thing that he was, Preston Manning was the head of.
No, I think it was Smith that actually appointed Manning as a part of that.
Because I remember going to that panel. I mean, they were touring the province, going to all the cities and trying to get opinions from everyday citizens, everyday people as to what. And maybe I'm thinking of something different. But he headed a panel. There was a good, I think, 10 or 12 people on the panel.
Yeah, there was, and
that was back in the Kenny days.
No, it wasn't in the Kenny days. It was a Smith appointment, and that's basically what part of her platform was, if memory serves. Because Notley actually used that as a part of the NDP platform in the last provincial election, saying we're going to shut down this investigation that Smith launched.
I can't imagine Kenny wanting that investigation to happen at all.
Yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely 10 out of 10 shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because everything that's been revealed about his response to the pandemic has not been playing favorable for him or for the UCP party. And this is the big fear I think that a lot of us freedom people have, is that the establishment is going to try and take back the party from Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Smith is closer to the Ralph Klein type rule than she is to the Kenny.
Mm-hmm.
And Kenny did an abysmal job in the short period of time that he had reigns. And he wasn't, I'm not going to say he's as bad as O'Toole was, but he was along the same lines as O'Toole was on the federal side of things, in that he'd flounder with decisions. And, some of his big decisions throughout the pandemic, we'd seen that he had information on the masking providing zero benefit. Both him and Hinshaw had the information at the same time. So for children wearing masks inside of school systems, they knew that it was a detriment. Not only did it not stop the spread of the virus, but it was a detriment to children. They both had that information and went ahead with it anyways. On the vaccine passports, and I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with me on this, and I'm fine with that. He had to. He literally had to. There were people that work inside of the province of Alberta that travel on a regular basis, and whether it's interprovincial or across the country or into other countries, they needed to have a vaccine passport. So while Kenny opposed to it or, feigned his ignorance about a vaccine passport system originally, there was no way that any provincial party could escape from coming up with a provincial passport, because the entire planet required a provincial a provincial passport on the vaccines.
Unless you're
So
coming out of China.
yeah, well, or unless you're coming into Canada from a third world country,
That's
right?
what I mean. Yeah.
Unless you're crossing over the Roxham border, where not only do you not need a vaccine, but the RCMP or your porters, they'll drive you to the nearest airport and fly you to the city of your choice.
Mm-hmm.
But so I mean, I give him a pass on that, and not a lot of other people will, and especially the liberal minded or the lefty minded Albertans say, well, it's your guy that started the passport thing. Well, fuck, he didn't have much of a choice. He was given $1 billion to do something. He did something, and then they conveniently had $1 billion surplus afterwards.
You know, a lot of, I think, and this is just my own opinion, but it was kind of what I was seeing at the time, was Kenny made a whole lot of decisions. So he said a whole lot of things that ended up backfiring on him. But, talking about, opening up the province, talking about our best summer ever, talking about all the shit that let's get back to normal, let's do this, let's do that. And I can almost guarantee that, because it was within a week every time, it seemed, that he would turn right around and do a complete 180, and we would end up the exact opposite of what the fuck he had just said a week before. So that can't be by chance. That's got to be Trudeau or one of his minions that's phoning up and saying, you know what, you're fucking with healthcare dollars, and if you want your healthcare dollars, then you're not going to be doing what you're saying you want to do. That's just my opinion, but it almost makes sense that for him to, try and get us back to some semblance of normalcy, and all of a sudden do the exact opposite. That just makes absolutely no sense unless he was being threatened. And the only way I can see him being threatened is with healthcare money.
But that's the same on O'Toole, right? O'Toole
Yep.
floundered like a fish out of water. Floundering should literally be called O'Tooling at this point. Because that's what he did. Like, the worst decisions in an election period, he was fucking firing people into an election. That's a stupid move. You just ignore the situation. You stay silent on it. But instead, he wasn't sure if he was going to be pro-Nazi. That's where I'm going to go with this. He didn't want the federal election boiled down to who could be the craziest in terms of vaccine mandates, and O'Toole rode shirt tails into that race. While firing other people along the platform for actually speaking up. Kenny could have been the Florida of the United States.
Yep.
Right?
Canada.
And all he would have had to say is, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If he'd have had a spine, if he'd have had any confidence, instead of listening to people, and a good portion of these people that he was listening to were ousted in the last provincial election because they were such egregious fucking cocksuckers. I shouldn't say that.
Speaking your mind.
No, they were. Copping Chandros. Fuck those pieces of shit. I hope that they run in another provincial election, only so that I can get to see them lose again in another provincial election. That's how much those people are disliked. And as soon as Smith gets on board with the fact that these people aren't there to help her, the faster she can get to healing the party and turning it more into the Klein party of the province, which is what people want. Now, there's a lot of woke that's moved into Canada over the last 20 years. This isn't recent, right? I mean, there's a lot more moving in now for affordability. 5% of the population in the last year of the province.
That's scary.
That's scary. 5% of the population.
Yeah.
If you could make 5% on your investments, that's a double money in what, 16 years compounded?
Well, technically, if it wasn't for
Yeah.
inflation, yeah.
No, that's right. Well, on investment, on just actual
Yeah.
dollar value,
Oh,
face
I know.
value. Inside of the province, if we added 5% of the people, in 20 years, we're literally looking at twice the population inside of the province. We can't keep up with the infrastructure that we have right now. We don't have the schools. We don't have the hospitals. The fucking roads are falling apart. Infrastructure is falling apart.
Mhm.
These people are throwing money at bullshit.
Yep.
And they think that, this mass immigration program, this Centurion program, the 100
Century
million people
Project.
Century
Yeah,
Project.
Century Initiative.
Yeah.
That's it. 100 million people in Canada by 2100
Yep.
is the way to grow. It's not. It's not. My literal slogan for Canada, my Make America Great Again slogan for Canada is make Canada have 38 million people again.
Cap it right there. Yeah.
Cap it right there.
I think I've seen that's literally what their hope is for like the population of Toronto.
100 million?
No, 38 or something.
30. Well,
I need to look it up. But when you look at it, it's like literally fitting an entire Canada into a city.
Well, that's the whole Toronto area. If you include Etobicoke, Scarborough,
The GTA.
yes, I believe that's at 20 million right now, isn't it?
Wow.
Like it's a crazy amount of people that are all there, and that may include like Hamilton, Burlington, London, not necessarily London. I guess that's then closer to the border, but
Yeah, I didn't think it was that high. I knew that GTA was at like 4.2 when I was there. It's at the GTA is 5.9, but it's all still centraled around Southern Ontario.
yeah,
We keep seeing the pictures, the images where, a dot on a map that's like this big decides what the rest of Canada does.
yeah,
By landmass, right? Like it's a speck on the map, and those are the people that are deciding the prime minister and the majority of the seats, and it's a crime.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I'm looking at the numbers right now. The projection goal for the year 2100 for Calgary and Edmonton is 15.5 million.
And we're at what, 1.6 in Calgary, and Edmonton's at what, 1.1?
Yeah, I think you could round it up to like 3 million between the two of us.
Jeez.
And they want to have it as what?
15.5
By 2100.
by 2100.
Holy shit.
Like, there's no way.
Well, no. I mean, builders are running full tilt right now. Nobody can afford the houses. There's not enough jobs. I mean, how many Wendy's, Tim Hortons, Starbucks, McDonald's can the city actually throw up where people can still be employed? How many more fucking Uber drivers do we literally need? And don't get me wrong, I love Uber. I love the service, and I love the fact that that it's out there. Because it's more convenient, it's quicker, and it's cheaper than the taxi services. But I haven't actually met a single white Uber driver that I've had as a driver. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So there's no advantage. And it seems racist, but I'd seen somebody post last week that they love Indian food, and they were holding up a Tim Hortons cup.
That was Lauren Southern.
You know what I'm talking about here, right?
Yeah, she posted that.
Yeah, Lauren Southern literally stood up and she said, "I love Indian food," and held up a Tim Hortons cup, meaning that doesn't matter where you go inside of Canada,
Yeah.
you're not going to find a lot of let's say people that aren't from India working in a Tim Hortons. But I mean, that's fast food in general. The Filipinos seem to own the A&Ws. The Asians own everything else. I don't go into a lot of fast food places, so I really actually shouldn't chime in on it. I go to the McDonald's once in a while, but as far as goes, I don't go for fast food, so I don't know.
Boston Pizza here in Blackfalds just got bought by East Indians.
Did it?
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah, that's that must have just happened because I was just in there just getting some takeout last Tuesday. So it's the only time it's cheap. It's half price past tonight. But yeah, there wasn't a white face behind the counters, and that's in Blackfalds, which there's not a whole lot of Indians out here. So that just it kind of shocked me. Yeah, I was wrong in that population, by the way. It was 2021. It showed 6.7 million in GTA.
Okay.
Yeah, that was 3 years ago now. So can't imagine what
Yeah.
it is now.
So they want that one to get to 33 million by 2100.
Like
That's
I
literally
don't
like
understand.
the
Like
entirety
Manhattan.
of Canada.
Yeah, like doing the math, that's over 400,000 people a year coming to Canada. Well, and then nobody dying, of course. So I think it was it was based on, I think I was pretty close to 450 million a year, or 450,000 a year, sorry. Additional people coming in the country with nobody dying gets us to 100 million by the end of the century. That's a shit ton of people coming in that we can't even take care of the people we've got already.
And you know, the only people that seem to be opposed to this are the Bloc.
They were the ones actually that brought it up, and that's what got me
That's right.
looking at it.
Huh.
That's what got
Yeah.
me looking at it. I substacked on it because I was reading through House of Commons bills, and I came across this, and I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah,
Century project or program or whatever it was.
yeah, Century
And it was the
Project.
Bloc that brought it into. So I did the research on this, and I don't think a lot of Canadians are familiar with this. But when Quebec says, "No, we're done. We're done."
Yeah.
And they're making up excuses now on how they want to preserve the French culture. And I'm not going to say it's an excuse. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing because I want to preserve somewhat of an English culture inside. If I was going to battle for another language inside of Canada, I'd have to do my heritage. It'd be Ukrainian. And Ukrainians built a lot in Canada, and especially in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. We rightfully speaking, could have Ukrainian. And I know that that's a hot topic right now. So I'm not pushing for that. I'm not. I don't give two shits about the war in Ukraine right now. Just so everybody's on the same page. Not two shits. But if I was to make a case, I'd say that Ukrainians have built a large portion of this. I'd say that there's probably a case to be made for other cultures to have language, protected rights. But we really don't need more than two official languages. And if Quebec can choose to preserve their province by way of language rights, then I think the rest of the provinces that are predominantly English speaking should be able to do the same. No, we've had enough. If you can't call a business, if you can't call Service Canada and actually understand the conversation or understand the person that's talking to you, one, they shouldn't be in that position, and two, means we've hit capacity. My opinion.
Yeah.
Guys, I got to tuck out for a second, eat some fresh ice in my drink, and
Good. So I got to make one.
All right. 4-second hiatus or
right.
something.
I'll be back.
I'll be back.
All right.
Break. And I'm back. I probably should have had some commercial playing. Technical difficulties. Maybe have one of those little videos up, the popcorn dancing and stuff, like they had at the drive-in movies.
Or like the old school colored lines they used to put on the TV.
No, I don't want people to go thinking that we're offline. Just the intermission. Did you ever go to a drive-in?
No.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so during the intermission, they used to have like these little these animated popcorn dancing, and it was like just to get people to get up and go to the refreshment stands and buy more popcorn and pop and shit.
Oh yeah,
I-
subliminal
I-
messaging.
Did you ever pay attention to those cartoons that they played? There was a whole lot of sexual innuendo went on in those.
There.
The hot dog jumping into the bun, and like it was like I'm not sure I should be watching this.
Used to go to the Corral 4 all the time.
This is funny. I was confused when I came back, but assumed it was a smoke break. That's my oldest boy hopped into the stream.
Ah,
Hey, buddy. Anil, bring back drive-in movies. No, drive-in movies. You know what? And I think this is going to be a big portion of what's covered at Veterans for Freedom. I'm going to know more as we kind of get into this and as I have a couple more conversations. But I think a large portion of what they want to cover is how to bring Canada back to a place that resembles Canada. And I think that the biggest focus on this is going to be focused around the family and the community. And I think that's important. And I think that's important on a number of different levels, especially inside of the province, because I think that Alberta has the best chances at recovery at this. And because I think that so much of the province has been broken up through the mandates, through the jabs, through ideology on the DEI thing and what kids are going on in school and stuff. And I got to be honest with you. Like, I'm happy I'm not a parent of school-aged children right now, because I'd lose my fucking mind. And my buddy Devin can chime in. Like when he was going to school, I mean, you know, we were kind of groundbreaking. We were the first ones, or he was the first one in school with a cell phone. He was in grade 6. His little brother was in grade 3. And it was a great communication device for children. Very costly. I'm not gonna, like, you know, back in the day, texting was like 35 cents a text. And you know, the cost of streaming, I mean, it's a lot more affordable now than it was back then. But back in the day when him and his brother were in school, one of the first things that we'd seen to go was the Christmas concerts. And as any proper parent will tell you, they hated going to those fucking things anyways. But because nobody wants to listen to a bunch of children singing. We've heard the songs. They're not doing a good job. It's an obligation. Hey, I'm honest here. It's not a parent thing. However, as a grandparent, I have a whole different look on that. So when I see Devin's girls perform in school, it's a different thing. When they perform in gymnastics, when they perform in dance, it's different than when you have kids. When Devin was in soccer, I was a soccer coach with this team. And it was another one of those things. It's like, man, how did I get talked into this? I don't even like soccer, and I'm not that good at it. And I'm not a good coach. I'm not a child-friendly person. However, I still showed up. For the grandchildren, it's a much different story. But another big thing that we kind of went through as the kids were growing up is the peanut butter thing not being allowed in schools anymore. And I thought that was pretty terrible because, you know, as a lot of parents, and especially in today's day and age with the cost or the affordability in school, there isn't too many things cheaper that you can buy that's somewhat nutritious than a little bit of peanut butter that kids will eat on a piece of bread. Now, I'm not going to say bread is good. It's not. The bread that we're eating, does bread mold anymore? Have you had a loaf of bread go bad on you any? Like,
no.
It dries out. But bread doesn't mold anymore. It's not the same bread that my kids even ate. Not the same bread that my grandparents made. Not the same
Yeah.
bread that I grew up on. Like they're very different breads. I'm not going to say that bread is a good food item, but it gets something that gives children energy, and a little bit of peanut butter affords them a little bit of protein. Again, not the best source of protein, but something that they'll eat. It's not a fucking candy bar. When they introduced this into schools, I'd lost my mind. My wife was actually working in the schools, and she said, "No, we're not allowed to bring peanut butter snacks or peanut butter sandwiches or whatever for the kids anymore."
Peanut anything.
Yeah, and I was like, "Why?" And she goes, "Well, because there's some kids that have allergies." Well, my wife worked in the lunchroom program, and I said, "Well, how many kids have this allergy in your school?" And she said, "Well, of all the children that we have in the lunchroom program, none of them have a peanut allergy." We made a school, or not we, they made a school-wide policy, which was, throughout CBE, Calgary Board of Education at the time, a city-wide decision to ban peanuts in all these establishments, in all these schools. And there wasn't one child at our children's school that had a peanut allergy.
Yeah.
What's the point of that?
Yeah.
Just
Isn't that
the
just
bureaucracy.
isn't that insane?
Well, again, that's what I went through as a parent, and I was ready to lose my mind. When I look at Soji, when I look at this pride shit that goes on in schools, it's a whole other level of peanut. Right? It's introduced into a whole other generation. I mean, my children are millennials, obviously. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. And I am going to say that, whatever millennials do suffer through is not their fault. It's our fault. We fucked them. We fucked up. Anybody that says they didn't are lying, or they don't want to admit it. We fucked up. We, like our parents, wanted to have a better upbringing for our children than they had. Both of my parents grew up in small houses with lots of children and dirt floors, no flush toilets. My dad spoke fondly of Christmas time when they could get mandarin oranges, because mandarins you could only get at Christmas time back then. Mandarin oranges that came in the little green wrappers, because they never got toilet paper. So they used to use those green wrappers as ass wipe. And that's why they loved getting the Sears Roebuck catalog, and they loved Christmas time just because they had better quality ass wipe in the outhouses. So they, of course, wanted to raise a generation where their children didn't have to go through those things. We had plumbing by then, of course. I lived in one house that had a dirt basement, I've shat in a lot of outhouses. But I'm not going to say that I'm from that generation. I wasn't hard done by in those ways. Our parents, of course, wanted, a better placement for us, but they still had some restrictions. We did the same thing. So this is perpetuated into my generation and my children's generation, the millennials, and into the Z gen. So our parents, I'm not going to say that my parents necessarily did anything wrong. For my generation, for Generation X, I don't think our parents did anything horribly wrong. It's just they were a little bit more lax. And the real issue, as tough of a people as we are, as the most adapted generation on the planet, Generation X, we fucked up. we fucked up. It's our fault. What we're seeing right now is our fault. Trudeau's an X-gen, right? Nenshi is an X-gen.
How old is Trudeau?
What's that?
Trudeau's 50s, right?
51. Or no, he's
51?
Wait, how old? I think he's a year older than I am. Smith is, I think, like 2 months older than I am. So Trudeau and Nenshi, and I know Nenshi just because I went to school with the guy. He was a year ahead of me, so he graduated with my sister. But Smith was a part of the same group. So I'm not going to say that all Gen X fucked up and that all Gen X are on the same track. But it is still an issue that our people caused. And I think that's might be a little bit more of the vigor that I have. And I'm not going to say that my children are terrible people or that my grandchildren are terrible people. I'm just saying, could we have done better with them to set them up better for their futures? And I believe 10 out of 10, us as parents, we could have. I realize we fucked up. We tried to give them a lot, and I think we fucked up.
Yeah, I
Gave
think
them
a
everything
lot of
but
that.
peanut butter.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Eric.
No, I was just going to say that, I think a lot of that was before our generation. There wasn't a whole lot of split families, not a lot of divorce. Afterwards, there's just a shit ton of it for various reasons. And I think that's just parents trying to give their kids stuff to show their love. And it kind of backfired. I'm just looking at that from the outside because I don't have kids. So that's what I saw from a lot of the guys that I've hung out with in the patch. That's their way of giving their kids love, is giving them stuff because they can't be there for them. And it has to do not necessarily with split families, but families that aren't necessarily hanging out together because both parents are not working and working a lot. So.
Well, there's a lot of compensation factor that goes into that. But there's also a lot of, we don't know what to do. And here's the thing, and everybody's seen the videos, right? When an infant is exposed to their first couple of licks of ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and their eyes light up, and they can't stop licking, and they're grabbing for the bowl and that sort of thing. And you think, well, then I have to give my child more ice cream because it keeps them happy. But it doesn't. It doesn't keep them happy or healthy. It gives them a sugar high, creates an addiction inside of their bodies. Mm-hmm. Infants don't require ice cream. We as adults like ice cream. Ice cream's fucking delicious. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I don't eat ice cream. I don't eat sweets.
I do.
Give me a cheeseburger any day over an ice cream anything, and I'm just as happy. But again, this is something that we did with our kids. So you start them on that track where you're feeding them sugar, and then for a lot of parents, because they're eating ice cream, they feel like they're depriving their children of ice cream. So we're taking our wants and our likes, thrusting them into our children. We're taking our bad habits. So I mean, if you equate ice cream to cigarettes, it was the same thing. There's not a lot of the same families that are smoking or vaping now, but it's the same thing. You like McDonald's? I like McDonald's. We got McDonald's as kids on payday. When our parents had payday, we'd go out, shop for groceries. We'd stop off at McDonald's, and then we'd go home. So we would have McDonald's twice a month. Wow. I know families that live off of McDonald's. And that's just because they got, they didn't want it just once a month. I know families that don't buy groceries, that only eat fast food. I've met families like that. You open up the fridge and there is baking soda and an apple, or condiments. And it's pretty bad. But what is that doing to set their children up for any sort of success if they don't have a well-balanced meal? And I've seen studies now that on breast milk, and it's basically along the same lines of what we see from all metabolic conditions, that if you're fat and unhealthy, a fat and unhealthy mother, and it's not the pregnancy fat, it's the fat you'd had prior to having a child, that the breast milk doesn't have the same nutritional quality and may slow down the brain development of a child. There's literal studies behind this. Having children isn't easy. And that, you know, when I was growing up, my parents said, well, there's no books on this. There was. I couldn't say the same thing because there was books. And then, you know, of course, there was internet too. The internet came along too late for me, but it hasn't come along for anybody else. There's just right now, there's too much fucking information.
Mm-hmm.
But we're flooded with a lot of information that may be correct or may be incorrect, and we tend towards a confirmation bias. And that confirmation bias is typically along the lines of convenience or something that makes our life easier, which is not having to accept what we're actually seeing.
Well,
So-
and algorithms also push you into confirmation bias. So you have to actively seek out something outside of your bubble because the algorithm's just feeding you more of your own bubble.
Right.
No, that's it. And you don't even have to be
Definitely true.
searching it. Everybody has said the same thing. You know, I mentioned a topic, you know, something that I was looking at in a catalog in front of my phone, and then all of a sudden my browser history now has all of these things popping up in my ads on my phone, on my computer. So everything's so linked together that the algorithms are definitely pushing confirmation bias based on, you know, small little tidbits of information that they're extracting without our expressed say so. They're spying on us and then feeding us bullshit, right? There's definitely a lot of that going on, and that's not conspiracy theory. Everybody knows that that's fact.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know though. I'd say maybe one big factor for the millennials, and you could like relate it to nicotine or sugar, is just dopamine. When we were in elementary school, we had dial-up internet, and when we were leaving high school, we had Blackberries, and then we had iPhones, and we kind of saw society move towards a dopamine-fueled existence. And now kids have TikTok, which is like 60 seconds. You know, you need your dopamine hit within 60-second chunks.
Yeah, and I've seen them do studies on even the YouTube and the cartoons that they're playing now. They're playing them in smaller segments to shorten the attention span, or they say it's to keep the attention span of the child.
Yeah.
But they're in 30-second segments so that it flashes in order to keep children drawn to it. But then, like you're saying with TikTok and even with Twitter. And I belong to two very diverse groups. Substack, I'm going to go with 3 now. The streaming is one, videos. So I know that there's a lot of people that appreciate video over having to read, and that's fine. My Substack is predominantly readers. So I've written, I don't know, 800 blogs or something, and it's all statistics and predominantly boring shit.
Long format.
In long format. And if I didn't use some profanity and a little bit of humor, I'm sure I'd have like 12 viewers. But I've amassed, you know, a group on that. But then there's also my Twitter group, which are, you know, 2 sentences. I write longer posts, typically write longer posts, but I have a lot more information that I pack inside of these things. So I'm not going to say that, you know, they're the anything, but they're 3 distinct groups of people. There's the short right, the long right, and the video people. And trying to appeal to all the masses in a single format is impossible. So I have to do multiple formats. I have to write articles. I have to be on Substack with short clips. And then I'm, you know, of course, hanging out with you guys. And this is a lot easier. I love it.
I like this format.
Yeah. No, it's good because we can sit down and have conversations. I wish the Zoom thing would have worked out so that everybody on the stream could have heard it. I apparently did something wrong, or it's not possible at this time. But I would still like that as an opportunity. And there is another streaming service that I can try this through. So this isn't over, because I do want to have town halls that stream, because I think it's important. I think the size of the group is important. The more people that we grow, the more people that feel comfortable in coming out and having these conversations, the faster that we can actually heal from all the shit that we've lived through and experienced.
Yeah. Those get-togethers that we were having, I guess that was probably last year, wasn't it? What format were you using then? Because that was
just Zoom.
Okay. And that was, it was working out great then, I thought. Those were great nights.
No, it was. And, if I could, I think I'd usually have them at like 8:00 and be on a Friday night so people could do the same thing. Those things are great in the wintertime because, again, nobody's going out. It's dark outside. You're not out working in your yard and you're already sick of your house. So everybody could hop into a call. And then, I started getting some really good featured guests into some of these things. And then we have the regular crew that's out having conversations. So those work out really good. The only problem is again, it's mixing the worlds. It's taking my Twitter friends and taking my Substack friends and mixing the worlds in a video format. Now, AQ, this is actually our collab. She wants to do the spaces thing on Twitter. I hate spaces. I like video.
The spaces is so people can jump in, they can jump out, they can come and go as they're available. I will convince you one day.
And seeing how bad the tech failed on this night, I may have to go into that realm. I won't be happy with it, but I may have to do that.
You could just dip a toe.
What's that?
You could just dip a toe in, and you can complain the whole time.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll keep working on you.
Well, no, it's just see, I had to pay for. I mean, I'm a Twitter Blue member, and I have been for over a year now. But I just upgraded to the Blue Plus, whatever that is. And I had to do that because Elon and Substack don't get along too well, which means if I post a Substack link into any of my Twitter posts, it automatically gets throttled. So it doesn't get the same reach. And that has an impact on my overall impressions. And my overall impressions are important because my impressions actually help me pay for some of the things that I use. So this StreamYard, I think it was like $300. My Twitter's a couple $100. My Zoom's a couple $100. The other things that I do, upgrades, that sort of shit. I mean, it all costs money. And for all intents and purposes, I mean, I'm not a big guy, so I don't make hundreds of millions of dollars doing this sort of thing. So I have to watch my budget. And inside of this, I do go to a lot of functions. I try to go to a lot of places. But again, I have to be able to rationalize it with the finances that I get from this. And there's a lot of people that are very generous in subscribing to my Substack on a monthly basis or on a yearly basis. And that's fantastic. It definitely helps me out. I don't work full time right now. I'm taking a bit of a hiatus, and I'm actually working on doing things that I think that are important. I've never been able to take a step back. I've always been on the hamster wheel, running and getting no place. And I now the children are out of the house, and there's a couple of bucks in the bank. I'm not hard off, but at the same time, I have to keep my budget into consideration. So all of these things cost money. Every event costs money. Everybody wants me out to an event that costs money. And I'm not saying they want me specifically. They want everybody there. But they're like, hey, you got to come down to whatever. It's only $180. Great. No. Tuesday of this week, in my area, in my riding for legislature, we have a closed board that was having an event at the Hamptons. So a golf club, 10 minutes away from me. It was $150 to go and hang out at the golf club to meet the board, and Premier Smith was supposed to be there, and then a cash bar, and then some bar snacks. $150 while the board is closed. They can go fuck themselves. And I'd be happy to say that to the president of the board. You don't want me involved in a part of your meetings, but you want me to show up to a fundraiser for $150 where I still have to buy my own drinks?
Good point.
And then I get bar snacks. No. Go fuck yourself. And I do want to meet the board because the board is closed. But again, because the party is so divided right now, I don't know if they're the Freedom Party or if they're the, I don't know if they're the Smith or the Kenny holdovers. I know it's Prasad Panda, and from my friends in the legislature, they say Prasad is a good guy. I don't view him as the same. I don't view him as anything. I view him as a backbencher. Maybe he's a great guy, but I every time I'd sent him an email, I never got a response. And the only time I'd seen him really show up inside of the communities, inside of my immediate community, was on these massive billboards where he was collecting food for veterans. And on that, the number of signs that I'd seen and having an appreciation of the cost of materials and construction, delivery, and pickup, I'd say that if he would have taken the same amount of cash and just went out and did a grocery shop, he would have done more for the veterans than he would have done for this thing. So it was it was virtue signaling.
Mm.
And I don't have a large appreciation for that. If that was an exceptional event and I'd gotten to know the guy and been to some of his other things, it'd be a different story. But I haven't. And that's the only thing that I got to know of him. And now that he's been punted out, now that we have an NDP in our area, and now that they have a closed board that wants to charge $150 to go out and have some bar snacks with him, like, I'm solid on the my support for conservatives, but I can't get behind a party that can't unite itself, and I can't get behind a party that doesn't want to have me as a part of the party. We used to always hear and say the same things. I don't want to be a member of a club that would have a person like me as a member. And I used to be okay with that. But on the political side of things, I think it's a much different spectrum. Whereas if these motherfuckers don't want to have me as a part of their party, then why should I bother? And I'll stay true to that. I'm going to start working with a couple of friends a little bit more, and I hope things evolve and I hope things change. I am going to be heading to the UCP AGM in Red Deer in November, and I want to get this out there to anybody that watches this, because it's really important for the Smith people. Mm-hmm. If we want to see the Kenny people not take the party back, then it's going to be crucially and critically important that we get a lot more Freedom people into that AGM.
Yes.
Because we're starting to lose footing. And if we get establishment back in here, whoever the NDP elects, which is going to be Nenshi for their leadership, we've got a big battle ahead of us, a big battle to save the province. And we can't continue to rely on rural Albertans and saving our asses in electing UCP and having the right people in place. We have to start getting the right people in places inside of our central urban cities. So yeah, anybody that's watching, if you're in Alberta and you haven't already, there's early bird tickets to the AGM in Red Deer in November. Book your tickets now, because I need you. We need you.
And tickets are cheap right now.
And the tickets, yeah, they're going to be going up to like $400 after the early bird specials, and I think they're like $1.50 now.
Well, that's with a meal.
Yeah.
Without a meal, it's like 110 or 120, something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, the 100.50. Book the tickets. I'm going out. I'm definitely going to be there. I know that Martin Belanger is going to be there. I know Eva Chipiuk's going to be there. Eric, you're obviously going to be there.
Oh, you betcha. Did you go to the last one?
I did not.
You know
but
what?
I talked. Go ahead.
Sure, go ahead. No, you say.
Oh, no, I was going to say I talked to Tim Hoven today, and I'm going to be having him and a small panel onto another live stream talking about the importance of this. Mm-hmm. He's going to talk about, just basically being there to be there, showing up in numbers, and the apathy that's gone on inside of the province is leading to the problems that we're seeing inside of the province, and we can't afford to slip.
Mhm.
The union has too much money to throw against us. The media is not on our side. We have grassroots, or we have nothing. So we can't, us as the UCP, we can't afford to be complacent.
I had never been to one before. I'd never even thought about going to one before. I haven't spent a whole lot of time with politics in general up until, oddly enough, right around, well, even just before COVID, I think is when I started really kind of paying attention. And then once COVID hit, I really started paying attention. But anyway, I went to the last AGM, took the wife with me, my sister, her husband, our best friends. You know what? That was the best experience that we've had in, I can't remember how long. It was crazy how many people were there, how many motivated people were there, just looking to do good, just looking to make a change back to what should be. It was incredible, and Danielle Smith getting up and just the speeches that she made during that 2 days that we were down there. Of course, that was in Calgary.
Yeah,
and it was absolutely incredible. It was I can't say enough positive things about it that everybody should be involved in. You don't even have to be major into politics, but just wanting to make sure that we don't revert back to what Notley brought to this province, or what even going back to Kenny, which would be second worst, I guess. Keeping on with the way things are going in our provincial politics right now it's so important, and it is so much fun, and we had just an absolutely amazing time. I can't say enough good things about it.
Cool. That's a good advertisement for it for anyone that's on the fence.
Yeah.
Hey Tim, we actually chatted about Redford is back, and it's a shame and it's an embarrassment. But I just wanted to answer your question. Yeah, we had chatted about that.
Yeah.
No, and again, the biggest part of this thing is conservative values are fundamentally conservative values. You know what? Hold on one second here. I gotta turn my light back on. I keep fading out. My camera. The shadows and the ghosting, it freaks me out. Driving me crazy. So conservative values are conservative values, but we want I'm going to say this. We want a looser conservative set of values. We want a Klein-esque sort of conservative values. We don't want the Kenny-esque. We don't want the establishment.
Yeah.
And it's weird to think about because one of he's party whip, Shane Getson. He seems like he'd be establishment Kenny, and I don't know where he sits on a lot of things, but I know he's a great speaker. He rallies a great group. He's very supportive, and he's very open to conversation. That in itself tells me that he's not one of the Kenny-esques, and that he's made party whip. That's another portion of this. So I mean, I think him and there's a few other MLAs that really fit in tight in these groups, and I want to do a lot more functions. I want to show up at a lot more functions, and I want to bring a lot more people to a lot more functions. For the simple reason being is because we have to get that mix back together. We have to let them know family priorities are the priorities of Alberta. We don't need to be talking about carbon bullshit and net zero fucking anything and EVs, and we don't need to talk about that. We need to talk about affordability. We need to talk about a cutback on the amount of immigration. We need to talk about things that actually impact the lives of Albertans. We need to talk about having a potential society where a single family income can support a family. I mean, I don't think that we're decades away from getting back to that point. But if we don't start working on it now, things are just going to progressively get worse. And I don't think establishment UCP is as beneficial as the Smith or as the Freedom NDP, or sorry, UCP.
Have you looked at anything? And I haven't heard anything from her in quite a while. And she's actually my MLA, Jennifer Johnson. She was the one that got
Punted.
Oh yeah, she went independent.
She had to go independent. You betcha. But she wasn't actually kicked off or kicked. You know, she's still a part of the legislature, I guess, but obviously not really a part of it.
I know there's
if you
been
have a chance to ever talk to her, she's pretty incredible.
For the Alberta pension program, she was actually invited out as a speaker.
Oh, was she? Okay.
Yeah, so she was there, and they'd also brought a Blaine out, who is transitioning.
Oh.
So Blaine is somebody that hangs out with a lot of us freedom people, is welcomed in with the Lougheed group, and Blaine and Jennifer were actually on stage and had that conversation. And then we all went out for drinks afterwards.
Okay.
That's awesome.
So, oh no, it's totally awesome. Blaine's a great person, and Blaine came out again in Edmonton. Had a great time. Oh yeah, to the meetup, and cool. it was awesome. So I mean, like the whole idea is they want to make us as anti-gay and as anti-tranny and as anti or climate change deniers. Like they want to push every ideology to the absolute max and then label us under those absolute maximums. And it's not that at all, because Albertans are not that. Canadians are not that. We're not racists. We're not bigots. We're not misogynists. There is the odd asshole in every group that isn't going to get along with everybody or isn't going to get along with anybody, and fuck them. So what? But that's not how we all need to be painted. We don't all need to be painted with that same brush. So I don't think it was necessarily a point to make sure that Blaine and Jennifer were there as tokens. I think it was more along the party lines of when they are brought out, when we do have these conversations inside of rooms full of adults, we can actually show that there's a difference, that we're not these hateful bigots, that we're not these conspiracy theorists. And that's a big part of the unity that we can find. And when we can do that, we can start healing families. We can start healing communities. It's not tribalism. This isn't a Flames versus Oilers game. You don't have to pick a side. It's not NDP versus conservative. Let's look at the actual ideologies. We want to get along with everybody. We want to make sure that everybody's treated equally. They don't. Propping people up by their sexuality, by the color of their skin, by their home country. Propping people up is not a way to unite people. It's a way to divide people. And as soon as people can kind of sort that out, get that through their fucking thick skulls, they'll hop off of those stupid bandwagons, quit playing a fucking victim throughout every course of their life. They'll start being happy. And then the rest of us can get along with our lives.
You know, it's funny that we get labeled as misogynist, anti-vaxxers, anti-this, anti-that. There's a name for every one of us. There's multiple names for me, for sure. They've only got two names, and that's NDP and Liberal. It's funny how that works. I mean, we just automatically know who the hell it is that's labeling us, because we don't give a shit about names. And I don't understand why it is that everybody they all feel the need to label us as anti or whatever the case is. But it happens with every group for sure.
No, it does. And on the Islamophobia thing, I mean, they started pushing that as soon as Trudeau came into office. Islamophobia.
Yeah.
And we should have seen the writing on the wall there that he was going to import 3 million Muslims into the country. And I remember. You remember the hijab cutting or the scarf cutting? I can't remember where it was. I just
No?
posted about it. It's just that some Muslim girl was coming and somebody had cut. She said somebody had taken scissors and cut in her
Right.
hijab,
Which
and
didn't
this
happen,
was like
right?
a 2 week ordeal to find out that it was completely fucking false.
Yeah.
It never happened.
Yeah.
It was a scam.
Yeah.
But they wrote on that for weeks in the same way that, how many piles of dirt or roots or sticks has Trudeau kneeled down with a teddy bear, calling them Aboriginal graves or First Nation graves? Yeah, I think it was Mississauga or Brampton. It was out in Ontario, Neil. That's right. This is where the hijab thing was. There was a
Right.
couple of these incidents that actually went on throughout Canada, but I think that was the big one that got all the national attention.
Yeah.
But all they're doing is propping people up into their individual groups. You stay in your corner, you stay in your corner, you stay in your corner. It's the red ant, black ants. You take red ants, you take black ants, you put them in the same jar, everybody gets along. Shake the motherfucker up, and then the red ants think that the black ants are bad, black ants, and then the war is on, right? So that's exactly what's happened. They're taking us and putting us in our own little corners, and then they're mixing us in the same society, and now they're shaking the jars.
Oh yeah.
They hate you. You have to fight back. They're after your rights if you're gay. How many rights, Eric, do you think you would personally go after for gay people?
You know what?
You have no idea even what the fuck I'm talking about.
No.
Right?
No, pretty much. Yeah. It's hard to even answer a question like that.
That's it. You're coming after our rights. What rights?
Yeah.
Well, our rights to exist. How?
You had those rights. You have those rights. You've always had those rights.
Yeah. Nobody's taking nothing away from you. Get on with your life. Quit playing a victim. But on the immigration side of things, and we have a lot of immigrants that are in the country that are not naturalized or not Canadian citizens yet. These are the people that are starting to make demands just because of the rhetoric that's gone on. Mm-hmm. They've gotten so much support, they've gotten so much entitlement that they don't believe that they should have to be a part of our society, and that they believe that they should literally be carried around in chariots. Whatever it is, whatever it looks like to them. But if I showed up to somebody else's country and I was getting a couple $100 a day, never had to work for it, could just hang out and order skip the dishes all day and know that all my bills would be covered. That'd be a pretty cool place for me to go to. And I'd get to a point where I'd say, well, maybe can you give me anything else? Is there any more free shit?
Mm.
And I think we're at that point where there's a lot of people that are going, well, where's more free shit? So they hit the food banks instead of using their grocery funds. They're buying newer vehicles than Canadians afford. They're living in more plush accommodations, be it hotel rooms, but it's not like they have to do a lot to maintain that. And they certainly don't fucking work for it. We are the ones that get to work for it, pay for their room, board, groceries, paid for their flights. We pay for their Medicare. This isn't a racist thing because I don't know where all the immigrants inside of Canada come from, but they are taking up more spaces inside of schools than we have available. They are 2/3 of the population of all of our universities. They are a major drain on our healthcare system, and they are 100% hammering our social services. Canadians are compassionate, and I get that. And we should be. There's a little bit of liberal inside of all of us, and that's that compassion that we feel towards other people. Mm-hmm. Charities wouldn't exist if there wasn't conservatives. And I think that's a very important point. Mm-hmm. Charities wouldn't exist if there wasn't conservatives, because I don't know if you've met a lot of liberals, but if you've met a lot of liberals and you say, what's the last charity you gave money to? They're not going to be able to come up with an answer, or if they are, it's going to be, I gave $20 to the SPCA. Wait, you want me to pay more taxes for somebody else's teeth, somebody else's children, somebody else's welfare, somebody else's health care, somebody else's prescription drugs for metabolic conditions that they've eaten themselves into. You want to decide how much of my paycheck that everybody else is entitled to, but when you're left to your own paycheck, you get to decide you've given fuck all to the same people. How many people, how many liberals do you suppose, and you can actually do this, you can give as much of your paycheck as you want for carbon tax? Same thing with your income tax. You're not actually capped at a limit. Canada says this is all the money we want from you. But you can say no. You can keep the rest of that. How many of the people telling you that you should pay a carbon tax would pay extra carbon taxes?
Sadly, there's a few.
Good.
Probably more than a few.
Let them fucking pay it.
They can pay my share, actually.
I know zero. I know
Yeah.
zero people. I know zero families. When they're looking at their monthly bills, when they can't afford groceries, when parents have to make a decision on if they can afford dance, soccer, extracurricular, if they can afford before care, after care services for their children, and still be able to have birthday parties and buy Christmas presents. 0% of the people that I know would say, sure, I've got extra income that I'd love to give to carbon tax.
Yeah, agreed.
Zero.
Some of these guys, I was going to say, some of these guys that are doing these studies and saying that, we should be paying more, we should be doing more, but they're probably first on the list of ones that they're just not about to pay anymore and wouldn't even think about it.
No, and here's the thing is, you know what? If they decided to make, if you could check a box on your tax forms for supporting the rainbow communities, flags and sidewalks and that kind of bullshit, if you could support or select a checkbox where you could support carbon taxes, if you could select another checkbox that supported bicycle lanes. They tell us that this is what Canadians want.
Yep.
But if they made it optional taxes to where that actually to those dollars went to, we would see how far these programs are going.
Zero would go.
They would never get off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Conversely, when you look at the charities that you would give money towards, and I support a few very different and very specific areas of charities, and I support children, sick children, and I support the veterans. And so, I mean, that always looks different. And I'm not saying this to make me a great person, but I'm saying that, I do investigate the charities that I give money to. I found out, that I'm donating to charities where, somewhere between 2 and 6% gets to the actual recipient. So I ended up opting for working with the Ronald McDonald House and the Make-A-Wish Foundation, because Ronald McDonald House is actually probably one of the best charities where the money actually goes to the intended people that it's supposed to give to, which is fantastic. I cut them off throughout COVID when they kicked families out for not being jabbed, because fuck them. Mm-hmm. So I stopped doing that. Make-A-Wish Foundation did the same thing. However, from then I shifted over to the Kids Help Phone. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Kids Help Phone. I'm going to give them a quick plug.
No.
Over the last few years, the Kids Help Phone was initially set up for children that were in, I'm going to say like mental health situations that weren't conducive to a really strong home value. If they were being abused, if they were being belittled or bullied by parents in a bad situation, that they would actually have a line to reach out to when they couldn't talk to their friends or their parents' friends like we did when we were growing up. So it's a community I got involved with, I'm going to say some 25 years ago. And, I did some door knocking for them back then. And when things kind of folded, and especially throughout the COVID years, I'd actually rekindled my renewal for that. because throughout COVID, when families were kept together, a couple of things happened. Families actually started to unite, parents and children, which was a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
The other thing that happened was the complete opposite of that, where families that were forced to stay together seen a lot more spousal abuse, seen a lot more alcoholism, seen a lot more drug abuse, and seen a lot more child abuse. And for that, the Kids Help Phone, these places where kids could dial into, the lines were off the hook. They introduced another program where children could text in if they were in an unsafe situation. They can communicate in more silence and still be anonymous. And so my big plug, I guess, for tonight is check out the Kids Help Phone. It's a well-needed service inside of Canada with mental health issues, with children, in supporting families. I still support them today.
Nice.
Anyways, moving on from that, I've supported a lot of charities, and it's not because I'm a fantastically wealthy person. It's just because we have been afforded certain liberties inside of our life. We do have great family support. So the support that we've gotten, support we received, we support our children and our grandchildren, but we always try to find that one thing to do instead of supporting our communities. And for us, it's veterans and children. That's it. That's the end of my rant on that. But again, we do it voluntarily. We don't do it because we have to. We volunteer to do this inside of our communities.
Yeah.
Again, talk to the other side. What are they out campaigning for? They're not out campaigning for the general good of people. They're not out campaigning for the general good of children. They're not out there to support veterans or the food banks. They're out to support the rainbow community. They're out to support a war on the other side of the planet. They're out to support bullshit. Good. So on our tax forms, next time you go to collect taxes, instead of fucking hammering us for 46%, how's about you give us some options as to what we want to support instead of you motherfuckers telling us what we have to support, and see how far you get with that.
Yep.
I support that.
Which would go a long way towards Alberta collecting its own taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all for before $1 gets sent down east that it gets accounted for. You tell me where my money is being spent and we will gladly hand it over. Until then, you're not getting a fucking dime. We really need a tax revolt is what we need.
Well, and somebody I talked to today said that we need to approach something on the same lines, and that something like that is kind of in the works. And it's in the works along with the Alberta pension plan. But we can't just do it on the pension plan. We need our own revenue agency inside of the province of Alberta, where we collect the money instead of sending it to Ottawa and having them say, you've given us $50 billion. We're going to give you $30 billion back. Instead of them saying that, we say, we've made $50 billion. We had to spend $40 billion. We're only going to give you 10.
Right.
And if you don't like it, tough fucking bananas.
Yeah.
Well, the insulting thing is they give it back to us with strings attached.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other point. Yeah.
Zoning thing. Or they haven't, I believe Alberta might be the only province that didn't get money back for roads. So it's just insult on top of injury.
Yeah, why are we footing the bill for other provinces and then having the feds tell us what we're allowed to spend our money on? And that's complete bullshit.
Look at the feds and the way they're going to the municipalities and trying to get the municipalities to sign on with them so that they can get money directly, as opposed to that's exactly what's going on in Calgary, right?
Well, Justin Trudeau was just in Calgary today, along with Jagmeet Singh and Elizabeth May, at the Federation of Municipal FCM, I think it's called. But it's
down at the TELUS Convention Center.
Yeah, doing exactly that.
With the amount of marksmen that there's got to be in Calgary, let alone the rest of Alberta.
I'm gonna have you stop right. I'm gonna have to have you stop right there, Eric. because I do have this being posted on a YouTube channel, and I need to stay up there.
Sorry, man.
Just, I know where you're going, and I'm not saying that I disagree with you,
God.
but
You know,
we
the
can't
times that
say
I
the
heard
quiet
that
parts
Trudeau
of-
was in Calgary and just like nobody had a glass cutter. There's a lot of empty buildings downtown.
Well, he reports it at the 11th hour.
Well, true enough.
I would bet that maybe
There's a
Danielle
reason.
Smith didn't even know he was coming. He just
Probably
scoops
not.
in, talks to the mayors, promises some money, and runs away before anyone even realizes he was here.
A friend of mine, Bill Tufts, actually announced it, and he's like, "Yeah, Gondek's at this thing today. We should all go down there and give her the greeting she deserves." And if we'd have taken his, I mean, we had this thing planned for a couple of days, but if we'd have taken his advice, I could actually been there.
I know some people planned on going.
Yeah, I
don't know how it turned out, but maybe we'll see some posts about it later and see if
Yeah.
there was much of a turnout.
that's
Was it
entirely
6 o'clock?
possible. What's that?
I think it was at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, and I think one of the last events that she went to at the that was a builders event. Yeah, I think it was the inner city builders event that she actually went to down at the TELUS Convention Center, and she got booed out of the place.
Mhm.
That was like 2 years ago. I went to one of them last year.
Oh.
Oh yeah, no, it was their gala last year. That's what it was. It was their gala last year. She literally got booed out of the place in the same way that she got booed out of the place at the Dome.
At the Flames
Nice.
game.
Yep.
Yeah. Nice.
Oh. Lord.
It's good to see
Hmm.
that people are no longer respecting people that don't deserve respect.
Yeah.
So many times in, especially this last 4 years, we've seen, too much respect being assumed or afforded to people that just simply don't deserve it. And I think Canadians have gotten off that bandwagon, not holistically, but to a certain extent, where we're either not going to show up as a part of that, or we're going to speak out against it. And I think that's exactly what we need. We need to talk out against it, and we need to unite inside of the communities. And again, just like we're doing right now, have the conversations. And hey, if we're wrong, if I'm wrong on anything, I'm not up to debates on things. Show me the information on where I'm wrong, and I'm happy to turn. It's not that I need a fight, but I'm very passionate about certain things. And if I'm wrong in the information that's been presented to me, then absolutely, I'm 10 out of 10. Have no problems in flipping the switch.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that most Canadians are the same, and that's why too many of us go along to get along. And by the time we wake up to what's going on, we're not talking about peanut butter sandwiches in school anymore. We're talking about pedophilia. We're talking about sexualization of children that don't even think about sex. We don't need this shit in schools before grade 6, yet that's what they want to push. We don't need it. There are no gay children because there's no children in those
What we need
age
in
groups
school
that are having sex.
It's like how a mortgage works. What is amortization? How to use an Excel spreadsheet. How to file taxes. Civics. Like things that help you function and prosper in the world as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to disagree with you on that. What we actually need is to focus on the fucking core subjects, because the kids that are coming out of school can't print. Not in the ways that, I mean, I'm not going to say that we had our knuckles racked, Eric, but I know you went through a lot of the same printing exercises in school that I did, and then a lot of the same handwriting exercises. And, after I'd been out of the, I'll say after I was self-employed for a number of years and then went back into the actual workforce, and people would write things down. It was like, what is this? What does this say? Like, it was illegible.
Yep.
It was the kind of shit that I could do with my left hand when I was in grade 3, is what it looked like. We all have prim and proper writing because that's what we learn. Basic skills like that will never run out of. A need for the ability to print.
Yep.
And people can't do that legibly.
I still print. everything.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. But what I'm saying is if your device goes down, or if you have to leave a note for somebody, if there's no other way of communications, if you have to fill out an application, if you have to go into the hospital, you're not always going to have the technology with you. And it's funny because like 20 years ago, I argued against this exact same point, and somebody said, "You're not going to be able to use your device to type this out." And I said, "Well, no, actually, I can type pretty fast." And he said, "Okay, I've got a pencil right here. I'll bet you $50 I can go through this faster." And I said, "Well, I don't have a device." And he goes, "That's exactly right. You'd have lost $50." So I'd argued 100% for the technology before, but I'm still, I'm not going to say I've completely switched, but we still need to have those same basic skill sets.
Yes.
And basic math, basic fundamentals on science. People are so confused about fucking science right now, on biology, on climate. It's embarrassing. It's
Well,
embarrassing.
you know what's going to be a good event for helping make sense of that is all of the James Lindsay events, because he basically describes how schools have been captured so that their main goal is to pump out activists rather than successful adults.
Yeah.
And I'm actually happy to be a part of that as well.
Yeah, he
So
explains it really well.
So James Lindsay is going to be doing, I believe it's 5 shows, and I believe it's Bonneville, Brooks, Edmonton, Red Deer, and Calgary.
Yeah, sounds right.
And I don't know all the dates on those, but on the 23rd he's going to be in Calgary, which is on a Sunday, and I'm actually going to be at that event. I'll be speaking at that event. So yes, no, I agree, and this is a big part of the unity. Not unlike what we're seeing with the party and politics, but the political agenda has extended itself inside of our schools, inside of our hospitals, inside of basically any place that's got a public workforce or a public union is where it's penetrated. And we have to start taking some of these boards back and putting them on the right. We have to, instead of sitting back and agreeing, getting along or going along to get along, we actually have to start saying, no, I don't feel like this is the best idea for my children. And if my taxes are paying for this, then why should I be forced into these situations? And I think James is going to do a great job, and it's something that the province actually needs. It's a big part of the awakening, and it's going to get conservatives back on board. They're going to see, the product of what's coming out of the school systems. And, I know my mom wasn't the most proud when she'd seen all of my grades. I wasn't always the most proud when I'd seen my parent or my children's grades. But at the same point, if I have an understanding of what's going on inside of the school, instead of not knowing, or instead of the school trying to keep secrets, instead of the school trying to indoctrinate my child into being an activist, if they're actually teaching the core subjects and extending those into, just like you said, AQ, into fundamental living principles and properties, that's exactly where we need to head. And we don't need bullshit. We don't need what they call progressives stepping in on that, because everything progressive that's been introduced in the last 9 years has been an absolute fucking detriment to Canadians and to traditional nuclear family values.
Well, and politics just don't belong in school unless you're learning civics or unless you're in university taking political sciences. But beyond there, it doesn't need to be there at all. Well,
when we grew up, and I'm not going to speak for you, Eric, but when you were going to school, every morning before school started, did you sing the national anthem in school?
No.
No?
No.
In Edmonton, when I grew up, that was the first thing that we started off with, is that everybody showed up and we sung the national anthem.
Interesting.
And there was, we sang God Save the Queen. so there were prideful moments when you showed up, and it wasn't an indoctrination of politics. It was an indoctrination. I'm not going to say indoctrination. It was just an introduction of pride into
Pride
our
of the
actual
country.
country.
Mhm.
So we would stand, everybody would stand, and we would do the same thing. And I went to a combination of Catholic schools in elementary and public schools, but it was a part of both of them. So I mean, in the Catholic schools, we'd say the Lord's Prayer, but at the same time, we'd also recognize the flag and the national anthems. And you get a certain set of fundamental values off of the pride you have and in the heritage that you have inside of the community that you have. But we've completely destroyed that. We've erased that, and that's why I think that we're seeing a lot of confusion inside of the younger generations now. They don't know what they should be proud of, and the gaming shit that doesn't help. The serotonin shit, when kids are on gaming systems and needing that, or the dopamine hits every 60 seconds. None of it's produced anything really that much better than what on I'm going to say on a holistic side of things. When our classes graduated, you had the low 60 percenters and you had the high 90 percenters. But coming out of classes and coming out of school, we all had the same fundamental ideas and principles. And I don't think that we have that now. We're now seeing where schools can't fail children. You don't even have to show
for too long,
but you can't fail.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the product of illiteracy. We're seeing the. I took my bottles into the bottle depot on Tuesday. Granted, I have a lot of bottles. I filled up my minivan, and I still have 12 bags inside of my garage. So I ended up with 35 bags of bottles in the bottle. Yeah, I'm not that diligent at it, and I fucking hate the bottle depot. It's gross.
There are kids hockey groups that would love to come to your place and take those. That would be their total.
Well, yeah, it's a fucking mortgage payment.
Bottle drive.
35 bags.
Wow.
Anyway, so I go through and it took me 6 buggies to get all my bags in, and then I still had to carry 5 in independently. So that's how I know. You get 5 bags per cart. And then I carried 5 in independently. That's how I knew I had 35 bags. I never counted them when I was stacking them in my van, but that's what I ended up with, 35 bags. The total refund on 35 bags worked out to be $277.05.
Wow.
Yeah. No, it was a good haul. Basically, it covers half of my Edmonton event.
Nice.
Whatever. That's how I look at things. How do I pay this shit off now? Anyways, when I got the little token from the guy, and then I went to the cashier to get it cashed out. The guy didn't know where the money was. There wasn't enough in the original cash drawer, so he had to call somebody in to get additional cash. So he gets all this 20s, and I mean, counting out $277 when you have 20s, 10s, 5s, and change isn't a big deal, right? It's 13 20s. It's a $10 bill, a 5, a toonie, and a nickel is what it really works out to. I mean, this is shit that was drilled into my head. We can count it that fast. This guy takes a stack of 20s, puts it into his drawer. He pulls them out one at a time. To get to $100, he puts it on the counter, and then he starts pulling out another 3 of them, and he puts it on the counter. I said, "No, you need more of those. Like, it's $277." So then he pulls it out. Like it took me, I'm going to say 7 minutes for this guy to count to 2 after I gave him instructions, and then I counted it back to him. So that he knew I wasn't fucking him. I mean, I'm not going to screw the bottle depot over for money. I'm sure that they screw me over. I know that there's a lot of shit that goes through there that I don't get counted. I don't care. I still got 300 bone out of them this week. Anyways, that's not even unique. When I was at Superstore last weekend, it was the same thing. A guy was in line, and I thought, this is going to be a good lineup for me to get through. He's only got 2 items. So he's got a bag of cherries, which I know what he did is he took 3 bags of cherries and dumped them into 1 bag of cherries. That's exactly what happened. And then he had a bottle of pop or something. Anyways, when he's there, he gives his card to the cashier and he says, I'd like $200 cash back, which is stupid. You don't do that at Superstore. There's a bank machine everywhere in the city, and they don't charge the fees that Superstore is going to charge you. But it's like, okay, whatever. So he's just getting a couple $100. It's not going to be a big deal. Again, the cashier didn't have enough cash in the drawer. And this guy wanted, he wanted 10s and 5s. Or no, he wanted, I don't know, he had very specific demands for the way he was getting his cash. And this cashier that counted out the money, it was literally 12 minutes for her to charge this guy for 2 items and count to $200. I sat there going, what have I done? What lineup did I get in? This is the most insane thing.
This is the express lane.
This is, literally was the express lane. This is what we're producing, is that people don't have the ability to take a stack of cash and make $200 of it in specific denominations.
Yeah.
To me, it's upset. And I get math is, for a lot of people, it's not their shtick, and I'm a math guy. So, but at the same time, it's $200.
Yeah.
It's 8 rolls of loonies, right? It's 4 rolls of toonies.
Hey, in all fairness,
45s.
My little sister, who's probably about your age, I'm guessing, or actually she might be a little bit older than you, but she used to manage a liquor store, and she was flabbergasted when somebody would hand her a bill and then some change, and then say, and this is back when, of course, I think there was still $1 and $2 bills at the time, but still. So they would, instead of getting a whole bunch of change back, they're just giving that extra 15 cents or 25 cents or 35 cents, whatever the hell it is, and then wanting a 5 back.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
she would just be flabbergasted by that. She had no idea what the hell was even going on. I had to explain it to her. Because she's embarrassed. She didn't want to say anything to the customer, of course. And then she'd come out and hang out with me. She's like, I don't get what they're doing. Like, well, they're looking to make sure that you don't fucking have a pocket full of change. That's what it is. They're giving you change so you can give them bills. And she had no idea what was going on with that. And that blew me away. It still blows me away.
Myself and my sister used to do the same thing. When we paid for things mostly with cash, is you'd already have a pocket full of change. Last thing you need is more fucking change in your pocket.
Yep.
So we would dole out to exact cash so that we could get a 5 or a 10 or an even 20 back, depending on what we were buying.
Yeah.
And thank Christ I don't carry that much cash with me or have to go with that. Or if I do carry cash, it'll be like in a restaurant and it's just for leaving a tip, whatever. Because I'm sure if I had to go through that same thing right now, I'd abandon purchases. I would just leave. You know what? Fucking keep your shit. I'm going to keep my cash. I just don't have the patience for it. So Rob Anderson's talking. And sorry, Tim, I have your question here too. Who's building treasures in heaven? I don't know what the question means, Tim. If you want to qualify that, we can work on that.
What was the question before that? Oh, that one.
Oh, Neil?
No, Rob.
Oh, with the population increase, higher percentage of insanity is indicated by the run on toilet paper, etc. No, and that's absolutely correct, Tim.
Mm.
Yeah, when you have more people, you have more insanity. It's the psychological impact of mass psychosis. yelling fire in a movie theater, if it's full or if it only has two people, there's a very distinct difference in the reaction that's going to actually play out. The more people you have, the more lunacy that actually goes on inside of that. In the excess deaths, this is confusing, Rob. And the reason it's confusing is because both provincial and federal, federal can't actually publish the results on excess mortality inside of the provinces until the provinces do. And the next time that we're going to see this happen is mid to late September of 2024. So we can't use this year's mortality. And there's what? Our world of data. There's Statista. And then there's the information published by the Canadian government and each one of the provinces. And don't get me wrong. Despite knowing that this shit isn't coming out till September, I still have a number of links that I refresh on a regular basis because I'm just as interested as you are. Not publishing deaths is a plea of guilty. It is and it isn't, because it's a very complicated thing. And while there is a certain extent that of statistics that people can understand when it comes to overall mortality, it is very complicated. And I know I try to simplify it, and I know a lot of others try to simplify it as well. And we actually do a pretty good job. But at the same time, there is some complexities that we try to run through so that it doesn't become as extreme and so that they don't discredit us right off the hop. And the complexities inside of it is when you look at mortalities, and they're usually bunched into comorbidities, what may have actually led to the death, because there's a lot of mortality that comes up as being unknown or ill-defined, and especially inside of the province. We've seen that in 2022 in Alberta. The number one leading cause of death was ill-defined or unknown. Now, the problem with this is that the healthcare services, the healthcare providers, get to decide what they base mortality on, or get to make a number of different distinctions when it comes down to it. So when you look at the causes of mortality, what you're going to see inside of there is something that's called dementia. And then you'll also see something that's called cancer. They died from cancer, they died from dementia. Dementia doesn't actually kill you. And that's a widely known fact. You don't die from dementia. So how any healthcare service provider can put dementia as a cause of death is beyond me, because you don't die from dementia. And I'm going to explain this to you in a way I hope that most people can understand. Dementia is an end-of-life process. And that end-of-life process has extended because we've gotten very good at keeping our bodies alive as our brains are dying. The dementia is a humane process by way your brain will process information differently because it's basically out of gas. And what that does is it keeps you out of pain and keeps you out of remembering pain that you've gone through, so that it allows your body to pass more naturally. Now, think of it like this. You're injured in a forest. The injury doesn't kill you, but you're incapacitated. You can't move. You can't get any place. The first thing that happens is basically nutrients and energies deplete from your brain. You go into a state of dementia so that you don't suffer from the injuries that you've incurred inside of the forest. So it's a humane way of passing. It's not a cause of death. That's it. Something else has caused your energy systems to deplete. A lot of those things are nutritional deficiencies. A lot of them are other chronic conditions. because you only have two types of energy inside of your body. You have one inside of your muscles. It's called phosphocreatine or creatine. That feeds your immune system. It replenishes your adenosine triphosphate when it's downgraded into adenosine diphosphate. So it's like recharging your batteries. So think of your immune system is being charged by the muscle mass inside of your body. Whereas all that stuff that you have around your belly, that white adipose tissue, that is stored physical energy. As we get older, our muscles deplete because we're eating less proteins and because we're moving less. Our muscles get smaller. We have less of a gas tank for our immune systems, but we have more gas for our bodies. So when we lose our immune systems, those same chemicals inside of our immune systems, inside of our muscles, creatine and our basic amino acids, feed our brain energy. When our brain energy is depleted, we have a lot of body mass that keeps our body alive while our brain is dead. That's why we see dementia patients lasting for years inside of hospitals. We've gotten really well at feeding fat mass. We've gotten really terrible at keeping brains alive. That's where I'm going with that. So there is a lot of complexity when it comes down to breaking down what side of excess mortality looks like. And again, it comes down into even the cancers. Cancers are grouped in clusters, but what type of cancer? How many men die of cervical cancer? How many men die of breast cancer? So we see an increase in cancers go up. Do we know who's actually dying from those cancers? And inside of the excess mortality, we can dig into the Health Canada statistics, or the statistics that are published by the government. And actually, and this is where it's important, we can go into the age stratification of the mortality. And I did this with Noah Chartier from Epoch Times, where we discussed the increase in mortality in people, and it was the under 45 group. Yeah, exactly, Tim. So when we started breaking this down, we noticed some alarming rates, and I did this with the Israeli studies prior to the vaccines being really mainstream, and especially before they were introduced to kids, where we'd seen the death rate inside of the Israel studies, which are fantastically more broken down and accessible than the Canadian studies are. But he'd found the same thing, and we went over and did the statistical study of this, and Noah Chartier actually published his findings on it from his analytical lens. And what we're seeing is people under 50 dying in greater lengths. But again, there's a lot of information that's involved inside of that. And I go back to this as to why more people were dying from COVID later on in the pandemic. Was it the vaccine? Absolutely, it was. You can't take anything away from that. The vaccines did kill people. It did damage immune systems. But then you also have to go through the non-pharmaceutical interventions, which was the lockdowns, which was closing down gyms while leaving liquor stores and fast food chains open. What you have to go through is the impact on people's health. So when your body is going through a transition period, you're exposed to a jab, which damages your immune system. Then you're exposed to a foreign bug, which further damages your immune system. Then you're exposed to a lot of different things. So you have like the trifecta of bullshit going on inside of your body. That lent itself. So it wasn't the jabs only. It was a combination of lockdown measures. It was a combination of the mental strain and stress, the sleepless nights, bad diet, increased alcohol intake, bad nutrition, and the jabs that actually lent to a lot of the conditions that we're seeing propping up inside of people today. Healthy people dying from the jabs, that's something that's completely different. That's where the conversations I'm not comfortable in going into, that's where we need to listen to guys like David Speaker, who's going to be at the Injection of Truth June 17th. I did a bit of a breakdown on my Substack for the information that he has. But it's basically liquid nanoparticles ushering toxins into your cells, and the one portion of the liquid nanoparticles, which was the SV40 promoter, allows these foreign genetics to get inside of the nucleus of your cells. So it basically changes genetics. And Tim, no, I'm gonna completely address this, and this is gonna come out next week for me. I 100% agree with you on this. I believe in protection of children because I believe in protection of children, and the jabs never should have been rolled out of with them. I'd calculated the studies before they even had the conversations and realized it was going to be something like 60 times more children would be injured by the jabs than would ever be helped by the jabs. And it turns out I was wrong, and it's a lot fucking worse. So I'm actually working on something that's going to be introduced into Ledge to hopefully get rid of some of this stuff. I'm not going to talk too much about it until I have everything compiled. It's going to be introduced at every event that I'm going to be going to and kind of carrying on in that. AQ, you still there? Or did you fall asleep? Eric, feel free to chime in. Guys, I just wanted to answer some questions.
No, you're doing good.
Because we're hitting about 3 hours here, which means we should probably shut down. I'm going to have to go for another pee and smoke some cigarettes pretty profusely here in a short amount of time. Guys, despite the technical difficulties, and I would have preferred to have a larger community on Zoom, but now I know that I can't do that through the same platforms. Okay, I'll figure something else out, and if it has to mean going to spaces like you suggested, AQ, I'll do that. But at the same time, I want to thank everybody that's chimed in. We got about 480 people here, and I'm sure I have more through YouTube that are viewing this right now. So we got about 500 people that have sat through us throughout the last few hours. I want to take a couple of seconds and thank everybody that took some time out of their Friday evening. Hopefully you had a couple of good stiff beverages and we didn't bore the pants off of you. Also want to thank AQ. You can find her on Twitter with the same duck. And Eric, who hopped into the conversation. Whatever. Oh, it's the Cobra. It's the Canadian Cobra chicken. That's right.
That's right. You're an animal.
Looks like a goose that got his leg hit by a golf ball.
Yeah. Ever play Goose Hummock out in Edmonton?
No.
No? Oh, it's a crazy golf course, and their slogan is do you have the balls to play the goose? So it's called Goose Hummock. and literally the entire course is taken over by fucking geese. At least it was when I was there. And there's nothing but goose shit all over everything, and goose like chase your balls, they kick them around, and you can't take too many shots. If you're a whack golfer like me, there's a good chance that you're going to go home with a couple of geese for dinner. Anyways, I don't want to take too much more of your time. Eric, again, thanks for coming out. AQ, thanks for coming out. It was great having you. I hope to have you guys on more conversations. We'll maybe get a bigger 5 to 10 round people if I can't get that whole Zoom shit thing figured out.
Yeah, it was a blast. Maybe next time I can convince you to do spaces.
All right, you know what?
We'll see.
Go ahead, Eric.
No, I was going to say just a quick note. My sister, actually, who's up in Edmonton, was telling me about this Wake Up Alberta tour that's put on by a group called SA 2022. They got together a guy named Rick Gaudry that started gathering people together that were just feeling alone. So every couple of weeks, he gets a group of people together. They talk about recipes. They talk about health remedies. They talk about all sorts of stuff, how to grow your own food, how to do all sorts of stuff. Anyway, they're putting on an event up in Morinville, and I've got a thing from a new chapter that's out of just south of Red Deer. But Jamie Soleil is going to be hosting this one, and it's got Dr. Mark Trotzy, William Mackus, and Dr. Chris Shoemaker are going to be at this event. That is Tuesday, June 18th. That's going to be in Springbrook, which is just outside of Red Deer, 7:00. And if you can't make that, up in Edmonton, I believe it's on the 19th in Morinville.
Sorry, what was the name of the group again, Eric?
SA 2022.
SA 2022.
Yep. Great group of guys. Great group of people. He started co-chairing events with David Parker. in the last year or so. I don't know if he's still doing that or not, but he's got a group. This guy, he started bringing in when you couldn't get ivermectin. He started bringing it in from India because he knew a guy who knew a guy, and
Who knew a guy.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so this event should be pretty good, I think. I would think, especially, I don't know if I'm sure you're familiar with Mark Trotzy, that doctor that was out of, Christ, what was the town in BC that burnt down shortly after he started talking about Lytton. Thank you. Yeah, he was the doctor from out of there. William Mackus, of course, doctor. He's an Alberta doctor, I think, isn't he? Or is he?
Yep.
Yeah,
Ontario?
he's Edmonton oncologist.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not familiar with Dr. Shoemaker,
Yes,
but they're all going to be at this event.
I believe Shoemaker's going to be at the Calgary event as well. But
Perfect.
I was supposed to do a live stream with Jamie Soleil. So if she's part of the group, maybe I can have her on next week and help her promote the event as well. No,
Perfect.
That's a great tip. So
You
thanks
betcha.
for bringing that up, Eric.
Yeah, I don't know if they're doing anything further south or not, but at the very least, it's not that big a travel to get up here from Calgary.
No, a few hours, and worthwhile trips. And I think as many of these things as people can get out to. Cross cancer, yeah. Macus was at the cross cancer clinic.
Right.
He was an
Yes.
oncologist, the cancer guy.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, I guess we're gonna put a fork in this. And AQ, you hung out on one of my streams, so I tell you what, as being a good sport, next call is yours. We'll do one of your spaces.
All right. Perfect.
I'm a good sport.
Yep.
All right. Well, you guys have a fantastic night, fantastic weekend. Eric, maybe we'll see you in Red Deer on the 15th.
Certainly hope to.
And
Do our best to be there. Thanks for having me on.
And if not, then we'll see you in Red Deer in November, right? For the
Definitely.
AGM.
We will definitely
Perfect.
be there. You betcha. Awesome. Thanks, Sheldon.
Excellent. All right, you
Thanks,
guys
AQ.
have a great evening.
All
Have a
right.
good night.
Enjoy your evening. Enjoy your weekends.